Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Clovis City Council meeting of April 15th, 2024. Thank you all for being here tonight. You think I've done this 1,000 times. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll invite Councilmember Bessinger to lead us in the flag salute.
Please join me in saluting your flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Baskell. Here. Councilmember Bessinger.
Here.
Councilmember Moanatua.
Here.
Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
And Mayor Ashbeck.
I'm here. First item tonight is the presentation of a much anticipated and updated Fresno County Clovis Regional Library elevations. And it looks like that is going to be Renee Mathis for now.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. So tonight, Fresno County has requested an opportunity to present their updated new elevations for the future Fresno County Clovis Regional Library.
Okay, yes. Sorry. Long awaited.
Yes. We do have representation here from the county who would like to speak, but before I turn it over, I wanted to just provide a little bit of background. So the new library will be housed at our Landmark Square site. Landmark Square, as you are well aware, is located north of 3rd Street at the intersection with Veterans Parkway, just east of Clovis Avenue. The entire Landmark Square property covers just under 6 acres, and it's home to our most recently completed senior center and transit facility. When the library takes shape, when they start construction, it will be located in the northwest corner of the property. So a little history behind the architectural design. Landmark Square is located on the former site of the Clovis Lumber Mill and adjacent to the historic railway. The building designs for the Senior Center, the Transit Center, and the Clovis Library really emphasizes the history of the site. It incorporates themes related to the railroad, lumber, and the agricultural warehousing. So Fresno County has really embraced that. They made some minor modifications that I believe really complement the site's history. It pays the respect to the site, and it is a lovely complement to our existing buildings. Now, back in 2019, we had the site plan approved for this project. There have been some minor modifications, but there's some discretion at the director level to determine if those modifications are major or minor. We've taken a look at those modifications, and they are minor, so at this point, we're not recommending any kind of formal amendment come before you. So with that very brief background, I'd like to turn it over to the county. We have county staff here as well as the librarian that would like to speak. I know Nathan's behind me. I'm not sure if he wants to get up and speak as well, but I would like to turn this over because we are very excited to present and show you their new elevations.
Thanks, Renee. And I know Supervisor Brandow is also joining in here tonight. Steve?
So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Will with the County of Fresno.
Excellent.
Good evening, members of the Council. Will Kettler, Deputy Director of Planning, Fresno County Public Works and Planning. The elevations you see were designed specifically to be more consistent with the buildings that are out on the site today. We believe we've achieved that, and I really appreciate my thanks to Renee and her staff for being very cordial and helpful through this process to accommodate these revisions. We're excited about the library as much as you are. Our county certainly needs the library to work in Clovis. The existing facility, as you know, is much smaller than this one. We're hoping that this square footage will really be able to serve your community as well as the other county residents that will use this library. We're hoping, targeting construction to be completed in the fall of 26. So we're going through a period right now of vetting, and we're going to be releasing some documents for this now. So real excited about it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I also have the interim county librarian with me, Sally Gomez, to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Will. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you for coming back for an update. Do you have a timeline at all right now as to when you're going to break ground and all those at all? Anyone from the county?
Well, our target for completion of construction, like as I mentioned, is fall of 26. Fall of groundbreaking, we're gonna be doing this through a design-build process, which is a little bit different than design-bid-build, so there's a lot of upfront work that has to occur to get the DB entity, design-build entity on board. So, as far as actual groundbreaking, I couldn't answer that right now, because we'll have to get through the selection process, which is much different than design-bid-build, so.
And with the soil issue resolved, you don't anticipate any major roadblocks for you,
No, short of
for you
the
guys?
vapor barrier provision that's in the agreement, which should address all that, so. As jurisdiction to jurisdiction, that's been resolved, so.
Thank you.
No problem.
I just want to say, the elevations are gorgeous, and it's gone through several iterations over the, I don't know how long this has been going on. Let's call it 10 years or?
It's been a while, yes, ma'am.
20 years. So anyway, but I just think it's really beautiful, so thank you for bringing us the
I
elevations.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Our
good.
design staff, our
Yeah.
architects worked very hard on it.
Really looks terrific. Diane?
Yeah, I just wanted a follow-up briefly, since it is a different process, you say, than the design bid build. What happens in the front end versus when ground is broken? Because everyone, like you say, is so excited about this. I get a lot of questions
Right.
from people about it. So just for a little more clarification, for when we get questions from the community, what would you anticipate is that kind of first part of the design or what have you, and then at what point along that process could we see groundbreaking? What's kind of the standard or estimate for those
Well,
types of
design and build, like I said, it's
Mhm.
unique into its own. So you're basically going through an interview process.
Okay.
So it's legal under the public contracting code, where you can actually release a project to the building community and go through a vetting process up front. And so where we'd end up, you probably, I think the construction process, I'd be hesitant to say, because I know what our end target is. That's the most important for me, is to get it completed. You're probably looking at maybe about groundbreaking, probably a little over a year or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's
once
just
the
a
ground is
estimate.
broken, we can kind of be
Yeah.
optimistic and hoping that that's
Yeah, because
the
it's gonna
timeframe.
take for us to, and I would say probably year to year and a half, we're looking at groundbreaking. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you got it.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I think we're good, thanks.
Would you like to hear from the interim librarian?
I would like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak to us.
You got it.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sally Gomez. I'm the interim county librarian for Fresno County at the moment. So I just wanted to thank you for your cooperation and participation throughout this process. I know it's been a long process, and we're ready to move. We're gonna bring shovels out pretty soon if we can.
We'll help you.
We'd love to. Yeah, let's all get on some hard hats and get out there. You know, just a few things. Clovis is one of the busiest branches in our system out of 34 plus branches and service locations. It's got the second highest circulation after Woodward Library. So it definitely is ready and much needed in this community. So we're really roaring to go. We're excited. We're happy to bring this to you, and we think it's a lovely design as well. So we're looking forward to it. So thank you.
Sally, maybe you or Will or the supervisors, but what's the horizon on this building? Are we building it for 10 years from now? It's going to be the right size. It'll be a little big now and be the right size in 10 years. I think about our senior center, which we had every great projection on earth, and the first half hour it's too small. So what's the horizon on the library construction, sizing wise?
Do you have it?
We'll help her out.
Yeah, help me out, please.
She's pretty competent, so I'll just.
I
jump
know,
in
she
there.
doesn't need much help, but she's looking like, I don't know.
Well, the size is over 26,000 square feet, which is much larger than your existing 9,000 plus. So, it has a larger community room area, child's collection area, a lot more circulation, benefits for observation of the librarian. So we see it being, suitable for many, many years to come. I mean, probably decades.
Okay,
Now,
all
Clovis
right.
is growing as well as everybody else, so who knows, but it's one of your largest, I believe. Right?
Yes.
How big is Woodward, the
It's
Woodward?
actually bigger than Woodward Library, so, I don't know the exact square footage, but I do know it's going to be a little
Okay.
bit bigger than that. Yeah, and I just wanted to point out some of the features you mentioned, already. We will have a central circulation, service area that's right in the center. That's gonna make it so that our staff are easily accessible and they can see more of the operations. you know, as Will mentioned, we'll have a separate, larger children's area with a separate story time room, much like Woodward has, that will allow us to do additional programming and without interruption of the use of the main floor. Several, you know, study rooms, meeting areas, and of course, a large community area that can be used for programming. That's going to be one of our most exciting features because, you know, we don't currently have the space for that in Clovis, so that's going to allow us to bring more programming, more community events, more of everything. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Mr. Magzig?
My name's Nathan Magzig. I'm chairman of the Fresno County Board of Supervisors representing District 5, which includes most of Clovis. And I'm excited to stand here with you today because I was sitting where you all were 20 plus years ago when the county came and said they were going to build us a new library. And then 10 years ago when they said they were going to build us a new library. And here we are. The county has money set aside for this library project, which the county began to amass back in 2017. And we're confident that we will have resources enough. However, we do need to challenge the community because there's going to be furniture and features in this library. I'm sure there's going to be sponsorship opportunities to fully build out that space. So friends of the library here in Clovis need to be engaged. I know in years past, even before I got on the Board of Supervisors, almost 8 years ago, where there were fundraisers being had in anticipation of this library happening. But of course, the location that we're looking at for this to go, it took all of us a while to get going on building that site, and then we had some challenges when we started developing it, but that's all in the rear view mirror at this point. Some of the questions that you asked, I wanted to maybe provide a little bit more clarity on timeline because I've been texting back and forth with Steve White. This is what Steve sent to me. So now it's going to become, you know, documented forever. Will's like, don't do it, Magsig. I'm doing it. So Steve says, library RFQ, which I think is request for either quotations or qualifications, probably qualifications. So request for qualifications goes out this week on 4/18 to start the design build on the Reedley Library as well as the Clovis Library. And then he said, I'll get back to me when it'll go before our Board of Supervisors. And then he sent another message at 5:52, award back to the board. So they're planning on awarding a contract to an entity in August of this year on both libraries. So I'm going to, you know, I've been pushing staff a lot. Will's over here. He's got, you know, he's like, every time he sees me, he kind of winces a little bit because I'm like, hey, let's get this Clovis Library going. But really appreciate staff working hard to try to get this here today, and really appreciate Supervisor Brandow being here too. He represents a chunk of Clovis in the northwest portion of the city, and he's very excited about this library project too. But I just wanted to come up, provide a few comments, let you know that as one supervisor who represents Clovis, I'm very committed to this project. Look forward to working with this board and excited to hold a shovel and turn some dirt. Any questions for me?
Yeah. Nathan, we have Friends of the Library, and it's also the busiest library, and so I appreciate you sharing concrete dates. I think our community has been anticipating, and it's not just ours, probably Fresno, they all come over as well. And so where can they, meaning residents, come to? Is it to your office? Is it to Public Works? So that way they can be updated and be assured that this will move quicker now that we're almost there.
They can reach out to my office, come straight to me, and then I can reach out to staff, and we can work together as the community has questions. So my direct number is 600-5000. And my email is district5@fresnocountyca.gov.
Okay, I'll pass it on. Thank you.
That's
Thank
the
you
best
all.
phone number ever.
It's an easy one to remember.
Nathan, thank you. You've been a great champion on this for a long time. So, and particularly since you've been at the county, so thank you for that.
Yep.
Mr. Brandow, welcome.
Yeah, I just want to add a few things. So Fresno County Supervisor Steve Brandow, as Nathan has mentioned, I do represent a little bit of Clovis, and so it's very important for me to see this done. I don't go back 20 years on this project like Nathan does, but I do go back 5 years. As a matter of fact, after I got elected in November, before I got seated in January, literally one of the first meetings that I took as an incoming supervisor, and Andy was in this meeting. We had coffee in downtown Fresno. I believe Bob Whalen was the mayor that year. And we were so excited. And in some ways, I'm a little embarrassed that it's even taken those 5 years that I've been a part of it to bring it to where we're at today. But certainly do have our commitment at Fresno County. And what's important to us is a great partnership, of course. So I'm very happy to hear that you like the design as presented, and I love the 3 questions that were asked today. Lynn, your question about, is it going to be right-sized? Fresno County just built an animal shelter facility last year that is already completely full, and so we don't want to make that mistake here and make sure that, but we did do a remodel of the Fig Garden Library that's in my district, and we didn't have to start from scratch. We didn't have to build a building, but it was fantastic. Sally and Public Works and all of the folks that were involved in that remodel is just fantastic to see the difference between a modern library and an older library. And I've spent a lot of hours when I lived in Clovis at the library right down the way. And so I'm really excited about that. Supervisor Quintero also now with redistricting oversees portions of Clovis as well. So there's 3 of the County Board of Supervisors that are very impacted by the decisions and also very excited to see this coming to fruition. But I did like Long and Diane's questions about timelines. And as soon as we go through the process of finding that contractor and finding the folks that are going to do the work, I think we'll be able to provide a timeline so you guys can see the exact timeline that we're working through, and probably need to hold our feet to the fire a little bit, but we look forward to that. Yeah. So thank you for inviting us down today, and thank you for bringing this up at your council meeting. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for cheering alongside Nathan to get this across the finish line. Any comments or questions? Thank you all. Can't wait. Bring us those shovels, Sally, whenever you're ready. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you all being here. Thanks. Our next item is a presentation of proclamation declaring April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day, and I've asked Councilmember Pierce to read that proclamation.
Thank you. Declaring April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas the special day, called Arbor Day, was first observed in the state of Nebraska with the planting of more than 1 million trees. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout our nation and the world. And whereas trees provide valuable resources such as reducing erosion, lowering heating and cooling costs, moderating air temperatures, cleaning our atmosphere by sequestering carbon dioxide and producing oxygen, and by providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, further providing paper products, lumber, fuel for heating, and material for many other products. And whereas trees in our community increase property values, enhance economic activity, and beautify our city. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clovis City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Clovis, declare April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day, in witness thereof, and dated this date, and signed by our Mayor, Lynn Ashbeck.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you. Paul Armendariz, Deputy Public Utilities Director. Thank you, Councilmember Pierce, Mayor, members of the Council for the proclamation tonight. So Clovis has been recognized as a Tree City USA for many years, which is a great accomplishment. We have over 40,000 city-owned trees, and that doesn't include all the private residential or commercial trees on top of that. And we're adding trees every day, every year, as the city continues to grow. There's a quote that you may have heard before: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So although we won't be planting a tree now, we will be planting a tree not this coming Friday, but next Friday, April 26th at 11:45 a.m. And we'll be teaming up or partnering with Weldon Elementary and planting a new tree in honor of Arbor Day at TI Park at the southwest corner of Clovis and Sierra Avenues. If you're available to join us, we'd love to have you there. We'll send out an invitation. We'll also work with Chad and his team on the social media outreach to invite the community to that event as well. And again, I thank you for the proclamation tonight.
Thank you, Paul, for all your work, and to your parks team and the folks in public utilities that take care of these 40,000 trees. Thank you so much. Thanks. Would you like to come up and get a proclamation suitable for framing or for your Christmas card, whatever you prefer? because you'd hate to miss the photo. I know. Thank you for all you do, Paul. I'd like to ask my colleagues if they would be agreeable to move item 18 up now, which are the appointments to the Personnel and the Planning Commission. Is okay with the great team here? Yeah? So we'll move up item number 18, and this is consider approval of various actions associated with the Personnel and Planning Commission. And the staff on this is John Holtz.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. I'll go ahead and cover the 4 action items that staff is recommending. The Mayor recommends appointment or reappointment for Council's concurrence. Item number 1 is going to be to reappoint Jojo Reyes and Diane Stabler to the Personnel Commission for a 4-year term through May of 2028. Item number 2 is to approve a correction of the term of Personnel Commissioner Jerry Brady from May of 2027 to May of 2028. Item number 3 is to appoint Charlotte Gallick to the Personnel Commission for a 2-year term to fill the vacancy created by Eric Zetz, who moved out of the city. And finally, number 4 is going to be to reappoint Paul Hinkle to the Planning Commission for a 4-year term through May of 2028. And Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you to those who are applying and wanting to be reappointed or appointed to both the Personnel and the Planning Commission. We are grateful for your service to our community. So if you are here, do you want to stand up? You want to say anything? You want to, take a picture with us? Because that's a highlight, I'm sure. Paul, I know I see you here. Thank you. I don't know. I don't see Jerry, and I don't see Charlotte or anyone else, Diane or JoJo. I'm not seeing them either. So, thank you for being here. We appreciate your service. 4 more years, huh? I think it's... You sure are. Thank you. Yep, thanks, Paul. So it is my pleasure to make these recommendations to my colleagues, and with that, can we do it as one motion, Scott? So, yes. Let me open the public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on any of these appointments? No backing out now? Okay, quick, close the public portion. I would entertain a motion to approve these appointments, if that's the pleasure.
Mayor, before I make the motion,
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to visit the Personnel Commission and have them reevaluate, bring something back to us, or just, I just feel like that commission has lost its luster. And I've talked to those who have left, and so I think that now is the time for reappointment. It's good for them to see what they're doing and see if we can also give input to see what else they're doing. And the staff can work with the Personnel Commission and bring something back. Just a thought, because we have not, ever since I've been on the council, we have never really looked at where it's been, what it's doing. I know the Planning Commission kind of is a machine that rolls along, and what comes before the Planning Commission is by statute, but then the personnel is something we can have input in, and those who have served for a while can give input.
We can put together an update.
Yeah, I think what I've learned, and we can invite Shauna, maybe come back at a future date, but what I've learned is that the role is changed. It hasn't lost the luster, the lens has gotten narrow, I think is what I would say. So when I was on the Personnel Commission 125 years ago, it interviewed most all, I can't quite remember, but the first line interviews for almost every position in the city. Firefighters, police officers, executive assistants, all of it. And so you were sort of the citizen's lens into who you hired. And over the years, that has changed because I think what happened is the volume became great and the pace became slow. The Personnel Commission was slowing down the hiring. So now it really serves a singular function around grievances for employees. But we can hearing appeals and grievances. Yeah, is that close? So I think the role has narrowed. So there could be months where this commission would never meet, but we surely can bring it back for an update. But I just learned that myself. So changed, is changed.
I would just agree that it would be helpful for me to have some sort of,
We can surely do that.
information on who they are, what they're up to, that type of thing.
It is a different commission than it was in 1987, that's for sure.
And with that, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the reappointments, new appointment to the Personnel Commission and the reappointment of Commissioner Hinkle to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you to all again for your willingness to serve. Thank you, Paul, for being here. Appreciate your service. All right, public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to this council on items that are within our jurisdiction but not on the agenda tonight. So if you're here to talk about a land use item or something on our agenda, this is not that time. But if you have anything other than what's on our agenda, now would be the moment. I invite you to step to the dais and state your name and address. There you go. Good job.
My name is Eric Rollins. I live at 575 West Ashcroft in Clovis. And I just kind of wanted to speak about, in my current bill for my city services, water, et cetera, the city manager kind of gave us a notice, and I think I wanted this to go on public record, that part of what makes Clovis so special, I'm in an old town, I'm a business owner, and I've been a long-term resident, is the fact that crime is low. We've got good education, we've got good crime, or good control of crime. There's no such thing as good crime.
I like it.
And it talked about how crime is up. So I just wanted to publicly encourage the city council to get creative. We need more officers. And I'm not sure how you go about attaining that money or where you're going to have to cut or what you're going to have to do, because I know that even though this city is in a better state than most of the surrounding areas, you've still got problems coming with inflation. And so I just would encourage you, be creative. We need to make that a priority. That is one of the foundations of the fact that Clovis is great, is that we are a safe city. People feel okay just walking on the street at night. And I don't want that to change. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that encouragement.
Hello, my name is Brent Burdine, and I just have a few comments regarding the, the passage of the new vision and mission for Clovis. And quite frankly, I was very surprised. I attended 2 of the workshops last year, and I was overall fairly satisfied and content on the direction things were developing. But I was very shocked and surprised by the actual document that was produced for a mission and vision statement, 4 pages long. Really? Every school that I had gone to, it would have been a failure in class on something like that. I happen to believe, and I still do believe, that the issues that divide us are few, and the issues that bind us are still far greater. And I was surprised that what the document you presented was basically a cut and paste document of catchphrases, of really kind of meaningless word phrases. The one that I did understand was parts in there that was submitted by the developers for developing Clovis in their own personal interest. It was pretty clear. Overall, I thought the document was devoid of any humanity and lacked any humility from the government. I'm disappointed and embarrassed, and I really think that Clovis can do a lot better. We can do a lot better, and I hope at the soonest opportunity that we have, Clovis take another look at this and rechange it. It needs to be changed. It doesn't need to wait 14 years for it to be changed, and it was a failure. I used to be a government employee. Like most government employees, they'll probably read the first 2 sentences and that'll be it, and I'll be happy with that because they don't need to get into any other stuff. But, we can do better, and I think that was a failure, on our part. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your time. My name's Heather Walkingstick. I live at 2686 Stanford. So I'm here, I've lived here for, oh goodness, I'm gonna be 50 this year, and I know that's young, but still. I've lived here quite some time, and my biggest concern right now is traffic. I understand we have to grow, and I understand we A, B, C to Z, but it is not okay when my 75-year-old mother is getting ran off the road because people are impatient that she's driving the speed limit. But they're so impatient because there's so many cars going from, say, from Shaw to Gettysburg that they're driving down the bicycle lane, down the lanes where, you know, cars are parked, landscapers are, it's just, it is so dangerous out there right now. I am a teacher in Hanford, I live here, but I have been off since December because I had surgery on my hand, and I've had to do a few things around town during the day since I've been off, and oh my gosh, I'm very concerned, and that does come back to the law. And, like, I would love to be able to speak to a police officer and ask them, where are you? Because you pull people over, right? You see them on the side of the road, 5, 6, 7 officers strong, but yet you've got people going down Herndon or Temperance 100 miles an hour at night. Not kidding you. Where I live, I stayed with my daughter who had a brand new baby for 2 months, and I did night shifts for her, and let me tell you, the amount of racing I heard, and even where I live on Gettysburg, it is just atrocious, and I just don't know what can be done with all of this, but something has to be done, because somebody's going to get seriously hurt, and it's happening already, we know that, and then the roads on top of that, some of the roads that we have are just also very atrocious. But the traffic, and I don't know what you can do. You know, I was told by my grandfather, once you give up dirt, you don't get it back. But isn't that true? I don't see dirt anywhere in Clovis anymore, and it's just devastatingly sad. But traffic, something has to be done.
I thought you meant like dirt roads. I'm like, well, that's an idea. We could go back to dirt roads. That would slow down somebody.
But dirt, like, once we keep giving up all this land and all this property, it's like, where are we going to start having roads for all these people, for all of this? And then these libraries, it's great, but that's even more traffic, and it's just scary. I have brand new grandkids, and we're Clovis for life, so I just, we need to look into that if possible. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. See, it's good that you've been off work. You can look around like in the daytime when you don't normally see what's happening in Clovis. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Mr. Trevino, nice to see you tonight.
Thank you. Members of the City Council, my name is Steve Trevino. I live on Bullard, and just recently I was speaking to Mr. Frank DeLuca. He's kind of like the unofficial historian in Clovis, and I had a good talk with him. He was telling me about all the things in our neighborhood, which we call the Stanford Edition, and he was telling me about Beansville. We call it Beansville, you know, but the real one is Beansville because of all the sounds of the water pumps back in the 40s and the 50s, and for a long time there was a sign right here on Fifth Street, and it was there with a wooden sign, and I used to walk on the mornings here, past here, and I noticed the sign was broken, and I mentioned it. I called here to City Hall, and I mentioned it to a couple workers, and one of the guys said, you know what, I'll take care of it. Well, I don't know what happened, but that sign is missing.
It said Stanford Edition, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not there no more, and it's been gone now for maybe over 6 months. And I know it's not a big deal, but to me and to many other people that we live in that neighborhood, it means something. You know?
Of course.
And because last week I heard you talking about historic Helms Ranch.
Helm Ranch.
Yeah, and we're historic too.
Yep, you are, for sure. Yeah.
So anyways, I just wanted to bring that to you, and one more point if I could.
Sure.
You know, Mr. DeLuca, I just met him recently, but I've heard a lot about him. And I really believe he needs to be recognized somehow in the city, because, he wants something done for the Italians that grew up there from Clovis. And I think that it's really important that we recognize a lot of the groups of people that made Clovis what it is, you know? It's really important. So anyways.
That's a great idea. I was been able to serve on the museum board with him.
Yeah.
And he, may I only be as, sharp and fit as he is at 94, as he is.
He is very
God
fit.
love him.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He is very fit.
That's a great idea.
But that was a good experience. I got to meet him, a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me about, he lives there on 4th Street here in Clovis.
Yeah.
And he has pictures of all the houses that are around, and he has maps of the streets and what was here and what was there. And as a matter of fact, my house was built in 1947. And I was telling him, Mr. Lucas, that the boards were made from Bryant Dam. He said, no, they weren't made from Bryant Dam. They were made from the old Army station in I guess Hammerfield and Pinedale.
Oh.
I forgot the name of it. But a lot of the boards from my house, they have a little sticker that says Department of War, you know. So that's where a lot of those boards, a lot of those old houses, people didn't have any money, you know.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Just one other fact about Frank DeLuca. This isn't exactly right. He has like 278 nieces and nephews. Honestly, no children, but like that was the last number. Only knows what it is, but 278. So next time you see him, ask him about his family. You might be there a while.
No, you did. He showed me all these pictures.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Can we check into the sign? You're right, it is gone. So we'll get that. We'll get that taken care of. Thank you so much. Please.
Hi, my name is Kate Wilcox. I've been living in Clovis for about 3.5 years.
Nice.
I've been happy to live here, and I guess I was just curious if there are any pushes toward affordable housing. I'm a recent young professional. I graduated from Fresno State with my master's, and like big developments, these gated communities that are being built at a rapid pace they're not within my budget, they're not within my scale. A lot of my cohort are in the same boat. And so I was wondering, how is the young generation being incorporated into these development plans? Are there affordable housing development pushes? And then if there are, how can we push for those as well? How can we make those inputs?
So I can just give you a really brief answer, and then maybe I'll invite you to connect with Renee.
I was going to say Chad McCollum.
With Renee, our planning director, or Chad, who's also part of our community development work. Yes, there's a lot of pushes for affordable housing of all sizes and types and all of the rest. And I think builders are aware that to attract a workforce kind of housing, you know, for teachers and nurses and social workers or all of that, it's really a priority. So you will see in our general plan, we're getting ready to update our general plan, you will see attention to that. It requires a builder to build it, but I think they're very aware of that need. So I think you're going to see more and more of that. It's not going to help you today, but I think in the next year or so you will see more of that coming to Clovis, because it's a real problem, and we want, you know, young professionals. We want to be a place you can still buy a house for the first time without spending $800,000 for sure. So very much aware, but would encourage you to connect with Chad or Renee, and they can show you a map and a plan, and we'd love to have your ideas in that as well. Okay, thanks for bringing it up. Appreciate it. So Chad and Renee, don't let her up. Chad's got you, Kate, out there. Anyone else? And I will note we have three, public comments, but they're regarding one of the agenda items tonight. All right, ordinances and resolutions with respect to the approval. The reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full. Further reading shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. Next up is the consent calendar. These items are routine in nature. We act on them with one motion unless a council member or member of the public wish to pull any of the items. I will note that we are going to pull item number 9 at the request of staff, and we will continue item number 9 on the consent calendar to a date uncertain. And I will also note that Councilmember Bessinger has a conflict on consent item number 14, as printed on the agenda, so he will remain on the dais, but he will not vote on that particular item. Any other consent items that anyone is interested in pulling? Diane? No? Anyone in the audience wishing to hear any of those items separately? So we'll bring back the consent calendar, and first I would entertain a motion to approve items 3 through 13, with the exception of number 9.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items 3 to 13 with the exception of item number 9.
Second.
So motion, a second on that item. Any other discussion? Did I open the public portion? Did I? Oh, yeah, sure. You bet. Well, maybe we can. There you go. Okay. Did I open the public portion? Anybody remember? Okay, I'll open it now. No one. Okay, sorry about that. All right, there's a motion and a second to approve consent items number 3 through 13 with the exception of item number 9. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then I will handle, we'll address item number 14 separately. Is there a motion to approve consent item number 14? Andy, or can you, date uncertain. And number 14 is an annexation of properties to the landscape maintenance district. So is there a motion to approve number 14?
I'll make a motion to approve number 14 on the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion, a second for item number 14. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And one abstention. All right. Thank you. So first up tonight, actually the only item under public hearings tonight is item number 15. And this is to consider items associated with approximately 1.62 acres of land located on the northwest corner of Ashland and DeWolf Avenues. Harpreet Singh Samal, owner applicant. Kelsey George of Precision Civil Engineering is the representative. There are 3 items in this particular action. The first is a resolution to approve an environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for GPA 2023-002 and rezone 2023-002. The second is the general plan amendment, a resolution to amend the general plan as part of the second general plan amendment cycle of 2024, redesignating the subject property from the low-density residential and open space designations to the high-density residential designation, And the final action underneath item 15 is rezone 2023-002, an ordinance to rezone the subject property from the RA, single-family residential very low-density zone district, to the R3, multifamily high-density residential zone district. Mackenzie Perez is our senior planner and our staff presenter tonight. So welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Mackenzie Perez with the Planning and Development Services Department. Thank you, Lynn, for the introduction of the plan amendment and rezone. The subject property is located at 3182 DeWolf Avenue on the northwest corner of Ashland and DeWolf Avenues. It's approximately 1.6 acres and surrounded by residential on the north, south, west, and a school to the east. The general plan amendment is proposing to change the land use designation from low-density residential and open space to high-density residential. The rezone application is proposing to change the designations from the RA zone district to the R3 zone district. The general plan amendment and rezone would initiate the development of a 26-unit multifamily complex. The development proposal is not before the council today. That application will be submitted separately through the multifamily design review process. The conceptual plan does show 2 points of access, one along Ashland and one off of DeWolf. Parking will be provided on-site in compliance with the development code. The project is proposing 2 10-unit buildings and 1 6-unit building with a lawn area and play structure at the center. There's also a neighborhood gateway that's required by the Loma Vista specific plan that will be proposed at the southeast corner of the property, similar to those along the south side of Ashland Avenue. There will also be a 30-foot paseo along the Ashland Avenue frontage. Here's just another conceptual plan kind of showing the plan and the surrounding properties. Here's some conceptual building elevations. Again, this is not part of the proposal, but will be reviewed as part of the multifamily design review and subject to our objective standards. The developer did host 2 neighborhood meetings, one in September of 2022, the other in February of 2024. Staff also mailed public hearing notices to both Planning Commission and City Council meetings. On this slide, it does say that no comments or letters were received. However, we did receive 2 letters today, and those were provided to you on the dais. There were concerns and comments that were mentioned at both neighborhood meetings and at the Planning Commission meeting. Those included change of use and density, noise, traffic, lighting, and an increase in water and sewer usage. Staff did review those technical studies that were provided for the project. The project, once it's submitted, will be required to comply with all our noise standards as well as our lighting standards to require lighting to be shielded. There were 2 technical studies that were prepared, one for water and one for sewer. Both of those determined that the existing facilities could support the land use change. The applicant will be required to pay appropriate impact fees. Another concern that was brought up was traffic. They expressed concerns about increased traffic and pedestrian safety. Congestion is known to occur at the intersection of Ashland and DeWolf during peak periods, which are limited at events at the school, which is usually at the morning, at the beginning of the school day, or at the end of the school day. A trip generation analysis was also prepared for this project and determined that there were 11 peak hour trips in the morning and 13 peak hour trips in the afternoon. That's an average of about 1 car every 5.5 minutes in the morning peak period and 1 car every 4.5 minutes in the afternoon.
Whoa, hold on. Do you mind? Sorry. So no outburst here. We're just trying to hear the story, okay? So can you say that again, Mackenzie?
So
without the entertaining value here over here.
That averaged out to 1 car every 5.5 minutes in the morning peak period and then 1 every 4.5 minutes in the afternoon. We can elaborate on that further if you'd like. The city engineering team determined that the traffic impacts would not be significant and further detailed analysis would not be warranted. Existing congestion issues are typical of areas around schools that are in session and are expected. Based on the low number of trips created by the project, existing congestion will not significantly worsen. The full intersection improvements, which include lanes and signals, are already in place at the Ashland and DeWolf intersection. The project will install trail and sidewalks along the frontage per city standards to accommodate pedestrians. Findings are required for both the general plan amendment and rezone. The amendment is consistent with our goals and policies of the general plan. It's not detrimental to the public interest or general welfare of the city. The parcel is suitable for the proposed project. It will develop an unused property with the size and location limitations. It would also provide an alternative housing type in the area and contribute to the city's housing stock. Staff recommends that the council consider the introduction of 2 resolutions, one for the environmental finding and the second for the general plan amendment, and that you consider an introduction for the ordinance for the rezone application. That concludes my presentation. Staff is here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mackenzie, and apologize for the noise. All right. Are there questions for staff?
Yes. Can you go back to the
Sure.
overall schematic, like probably 8 pages back?
This one or the second one?
That one.
That one? Okay.
Now, the two driveways, the one that goes out on the Ashland isn't really going to be, at least in my opinion, a big issue because there's a median there. But on DeWolf, any concerns from the traffic engineer about people turning left, or have we especially during peak hours when people are gonna drop their kids off at school or something like that. I can see that being problematic.
So the location of that, excuse me, location of that driveway is not ideal. We typically would not want a driveway that close to the intersection. So there is a little concern about that, but not to the point of needing additional mitigation, for the project.
But if that became an issue of concern, I guess we probably could put a small median there, but that might create even a bigger problem.
That is an option that we've done in other locations, yes.
Okay. And looking at I went out and took a look at it, and then I looked at the Google Earth of this. The parcel that's to the north, there's a residential parcel and a much larger, longer parcel. Who does that parcel, it looks like it's industrial agriculture. Who does that belong to? Is that the residents, or is that?
It's another property owner, so it's not this applicant. It's
Right,
it's a single-family residence, and my understanding is that it was used as a wholesale nursery at one point.
Okay. And we've, as far as, because you have, I think was it White Ash, the street that's cul-de-sac on the north side, have we ever had any projects that have been put forward on what we're gonna do with that particular?
We don't have any projects at the time, and I'm not aware of any inquiries that we have for development on that site.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Paul?
On this photo right here, on the top left, right side, there's a trail up there, right? That's where the trail kind of ends to nowhere.
Yes.
Are we looking to connect it more just going straight down, and then the corner connection will kind of not be part of this?
Yeah, so we did have the applicant, and I think the applicant does have a slide in their presentation that we can kind of show you. We do require applicants to submit kind of a conceptual plan to show the connection with their project. Based on that conceptual plan, it would go all the way down to Ashland and then across that property on the west side of this project, connecting to this project.
Okay, so it'll go
provide
that
a
way.
connection, yes.
And then there's also a monument in that corner, like pretty much all the Loma Vista.
Yeah, the neighborhood gateway will be a requirement as part of the project. That's kind of one of the reasons why there's limitations, because it does take a lot of the property for that gateway.
And then with Councilmember Bessinger regarding the DeWolf entry, any thought about a right-in, right-out, or that's not a good spot? I just thinking about that, and about when there's soccer, I don't know how far down the parking is allowed on that side of the street, and how that affects this property.
We can look into that on the project basis, yes.
Okay, so once it goes to you guys can kind of work those details. Okay, all right, appreciate that. And then with VMT, I read that it doesn't meet the threshold, so because of that, it's less than significant, so there's no issues with VMT.
Correct. We don't have to review VMT because of the thresholds, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Sometime back, there was an apartment complex built at Ashland and Temperance, and I think it's probably a little bigger than what this proposal is. But a lot of the same issues were raised, I remember back with concerns about traffic and going through neighborhoods and that kind of thing. Do we know if we've had any issues with that apartment complex that are significant or meet the same type of issues that have been raised here?
You know, I have not. I also checked to see what the calls for service were for that specific development. We had 2 calls for service since January of last year regarding barking dogs. So we haven't heard of any concerns, at least in relation to calls for service for that development.
Thanks. And then the only other question I have, and it's just going back to trying to understand this SB 9. Does SB 9 have anything to do with this project at all, or could it?
No. No.
Last question. Does this count towards if we were to build this, does this count towards our affordable housing units?
The project, it would not. It's not proposed as an affordable housing project.
density doesn't meet that requirement?
Well, the density, the zoning will, but since we have a project that's being developed, that we know is not an affordable housing project, it would include for that specific, but it would be at a certain level, so market rate housing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, correction, moderate housing. It would be part of that inventory.
I have just a couple questions. I've asked this before, and I know the answer, so heads up. But we don't have a practice, and we've looked into a practice where shifts in land use can only go up so many zone districts. It's a big jump from low density to high density. There's a few other steps along the way. Have we ever considered any sort of policy around how that happens? Because these kinds of shifts are big jolts to the neighborhood, right? To one zone district, maybe not, less, maybe two, but this goes up at least 3, I'm betting. So have we ever thought about that as a practice or a policy?
And I'm going to let Dave answer that.
You're going to make Dave answer that. I know you're going to tell me no, but is there a reason why we might not want to think about that?
At least as it relates to my experience, here, we have not looked at a policy that would limit the number of density steps that a project could propose. And I think that's because it would be, would create too much uncertainty to create a one-size-fits-all policy without knowing what the merits of a particular change were. And we also have the consideration of a project proposing to change from a residential land use designation to a non-residential land use designation, and trying to create defined limits on what somebody can propose really takes away the question of what could be made to work on a project. So I think you're correct. We haven't done it, and I think we would be hesitant to suggest it just because every project should be weighed on the merits of its specifics.
I knew you were going to say that. I do think, though, fundamentally, it changes the dynamic of the neighborhood. So I feel like there should be some accommodation. Infill's one thing. I don't exactly think of this as infill because it's on a corner. So I think that we run into trouble on projects where it's such a dramatic shift. So I will continue to ask about that because there's something about GPAs are hard enough, and when they go from kind of 0 to 60, it makes a big difference for folks. So just a comment on that. I'm concerned about the trail, removing the trail requirement. I'm not tracking that exactly. Can you talk to me about that?
So we're not removing the trail requirement. We're just changing the land use designation. So the current designation, let me just go to the screen. It kind of has a little green on both the Ashland and DeWolf. So the trail requirement will still remain. There will still be a requirement for the 30-foot. We just wanted one consistent designation on the property. So it would go from the low and the open space designations to just the high density. But that 30-foot paseo, which is what that open space is along Ashland Avenue, will remain a requirement. And there will still be a sidewalk connection on DeWolf as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I did not read it that way. Thank you for that clarification. Planning Commission act on this? I didn't see, I guess I didn't see that in here. But 5-0 in favor?
Yes.
Okay. And then, I know we're not talking about the design, so I'm not gonna say what I'm about to say. I'm not saying what I'm about to say. I think we owe it to the neighbors, back to my earlier comment, it has to look like the neighborhood. And I know we're not talking about it, so I'm not talking about it, but what I saw does not match that at all. So that would be an alarming addition, should we move forward with this. The project at Temperance and Ashland looks like the neighborhood, whatever that, for better or worse. So, and would we, if we approve these tonight, will this come back, and will the site plan or anything else come back for that conversation?
No, it's part of it will go through the multifamily design review, which is a ministerial review, and it will be in compliance with our objective standards, which does outline certain requirements for aesthetics and building materials and things like that. So,
all right. Well, so I just wanted on the record something I'm not supposed to talk about, but I just did talk about it. All right. Any other questions for staff? Diane, do you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Just an additional comment on the jump in densities. I think the other thing that really causes is just vast uncertainty, because as people are looking at our general plan and what the zoning is, I mean, everybody acknowledges that things can change, and sometimes they have to change because we don't actually know what things are going to look like 20 years ahead. And so the general plan amendment process is critical to being able to actually flesh things out. But at the same time, if there isn't some sort of standard where people can say, okay, I see what this empty lot or what this, you know, maybe people can tell soon to be as development's coming, other things are going to happen. If there isn't some ability for people to have a legitimate guesstimate of what may or may not be coming, it makes it very difficult. And I know that as a city and as a council, we have a lot of pressures when it comes to densities and housing issues from Sacramento and elsewhere, but I think that it would be helpful to have some sort of policy where, whether it's council or staff or just residents, can have a little more assurance of, okay, I see what this is currently zoned at. You know, it is single-family residential, maybe it's even medium density. What I can at least know is it's not going to turn into industrial, or I know it's not going, but right now it feels like there's really no certainty. Anything could pop up anywhere, and a lot of that I understand is due to the pressures that are on us, but is there a way for us to offer that type of mild assurance to people when they look at what we're doing, that there's some sense that there's still a likelihood that that's what it's going to be, and it's not really, it's what it is for now, but really ultimately it could be a free-for-all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a legitimate policy thought, for sure. And I bet we hear that from the neighbors too, because I think that's part of the shock about what? So, anyway, yeah.
I just wanted to say that in Heritage Grove, we put that in, that there was a, you know, gradual transition. And so that was a policy in which we wanted. But I think the GPA process, to sort of rebut what you guys are saying, is that process. Because regardless of what it is, the GPA process allows landowners to come and to present something, and it may be totally against what our general plan is, but as long as it fits the goals and as long as it fits the findings, that's what this hearing is for. So if we make it where, if the GPA process, you can only change to, you know, one up or one down, then it defeats the whole purpose of a GPA process. And so that's what I'm just looking at.
I think, again, we're not talking about this either, but I think I think it's not only, but I think it would be, if you're going to go from here to here, there's a higher standard to be met, more outreach, more something, more I don't know, more something, just to sort of get the idea out there, because I don't know what our residents and neighbors are going to say, but I'm going to guess they're going to go, what? It's a lot on the corner. So, I mean, if I lived there, it would be a lot. So anyway, I think, I'm just saying it's not either or, but maybe there's some hybrid where these big jumps in land use might warrant some different kind of conversation. So we can address that at some other point in the future, but it's a good conversation, I think, to have. All right, let us open the public comment, and we will hear comments, I think, on all three of the items, since they're all related to the same parcel of land. Does the applicant want to speak to the, I don't know who the applicant is, I'm looking around. Hello.
Hello, good evening. I have a quick presentation, if we could bring it up.
And would you just state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Kelsey George. I'm a senior planner with Precision Civil Engineering. Okay, and so good evening, Council, Mayor Ashbeck. I said I'm Kelsey George with Precision Civil Engineering. And we have Peter Sumal and Jagdeep Singh, who are the property owners, who are also here tonight. So I'm going to try not to be too redundant with what staff has already said, but just to kind of orient us, we are on the northwest corner of Ashland and DeWolf. It's about 1.62 acres. And just another project layout and description really quickly. So the requests being heard this evening only pertain to the land use changes, not the physical development, but that is what we're doing. So for the purposes of being transparent in front of the council and the community, we wanted to show the conceptual. So this plan hasn't been submitted for development consideration by the city, but it has been submitted to the city for the conceptual layout. We have the trail requirement on both street frontages and that community gateway there. So this is the size and scope of what 26 multifamily residential units would look like with all of the required parking. We'll talk about some of the concerns and things that were brought up by the community a little bit later as they pertain to traffic and parking and things like that. But I just kind of wanted to show the landscaping and the buffering that we tried to put in for the surrounding single-family uses. And I know it's jarring to jump from, you know, low density to high density. The high density, I think, goes up to this, the zone district we're requesting goes up to 24, 23, 30. And what we're requesting is at 16 dwelling units per acre. So it is at the very low end of that permitted density range. Our CEQA studies are done at 26 units, so that's what was analyzed. But I know it's a jarring number, but we are at that lower side. So it is at 16 dwelling units an acre. So next I wanted to get into some of the development constraints that are warranting the land use request or the land use change request. So to start, there's the required public improvements. There's a 30-foot paseo along both street frontages that's required by the owners to be dedicated and constructed, and then it's just shy of 6,300 square foot for that neighborhood gateway. There's limited access, so Thad touched on it a little bit about not wanting that drive approach to be so close to the intersection. City standards they require the drive approaches to be 50 to 100 feet away from the intersection. So even with the existing zone district, that would be 6 lots, that would be 6 drive approaches, all of which would be closer to that intersection and could potentially create more traffic issues with them pulling out so close to the intersection. And then there's the lot configuration constraints on the property. So the subject property is approximately 280 feet wide by 250 feet deep. In the Clovis Municipal Code, the RA Zone District requires lot configuration standards of 110 by 130. So there's no way to develop this lot at the highest end of the density range with the current zone district, but it's also not even possible to develop this lot at the lowest density if we were to put 3 lots there, because the lot configuration standards, they're just not there. They don't add up. And another thing I wanted to point out, because I feel like it's always it kind of comes back to always maximizing profits and things like that. And as a property owner, you're completely entitled to maximize the value of your property, but single family was not, or multifamily was not the first thing that we came up with. We talked about commercial there, we talked about single family, and both of those just were not feasible at this site. So again, although there's no physical development proposed as part of the request tonight, these requests are considered a project under CEQA, and therefore it did go through environmental review. The city prepared an initial study that determined there would be no significant impacts as a result of the project with mitigation measures incorporated, and that's what the mitigated negative declaration is. So the initial study looked at the 19 required impact areas, including things like aesthetics, land use, transportation, public services, and things like that. The city required the owner to provide the technical studies listed there, so air quality, greenhouse gas analysis, a historical resources evaluation, an archaeological resources assessment, a trip generation analysis with VMT analysis, and the biological resources assessment. So all of these studies were done by a third-party environmental firm, LSA, and the determination was the size and the scope and the location of the project would have a less than significant impact with those mitigations incorporated. So next I wanted to talk about the policies of the city's draft housing element. So in addition to the general plan policies that were included in the staff report and the justification, I wanted to point out a couple from the housing element, since the housing element is a part of the general plan, and this is a residential development, so they kind of go hand in hand. There's a housing element goal H1 to accelerate housing production, and it says to provide ample supply of housing to meet the existing and projected housing needs for households at all income levels. I think staff touched on it in her presentation, but these are market rate. They aren't subsidized at all, but they would still count towards the city's moderate income allocation. And then within goal H1, there's a few applicable housing element policies. H-1.2 is to remove barriers to housing production. H-1.3 is to provide a variety of housing types, and H-1.5 is to diversify housing in single-family neighborhoods. So multifamily residential has, you know, an array of purposes in this day and age. It's transitional housing for young and emerging professionals leaving their parents' house, for seniors looking to downsize, for workforce housing, teachers, traveling nurses, and things like that. And this could really help the city reach their goals as it pertains to capturing that level of housing stock. So next, we will talk about the public outreach component. So the Clovis Municipal Code does require 2 neighborhood meetings, and as staff pointed out, we did have 2. Several members of the community and neighborhood attended both of them. Several of them are here this evening, I'm sure, to you know, be heard. They had great insights, and they shared a lot with us on both of those occasions. The concerns and insights that we received from the neighbors regarding multifamily residential in general, and that jarring, stark difference between you know, what they thought and what's being proposed. The Paseo, there was a concern regarding closing off the Paseo, which to my understanding is not part of our proposal at all. We're required to put it in. We're happy to put it in. Parking, so the city's municipal code, it mandates the number of parking stalls. This project has to provide all parking on site. Street parking is not permitted. There will be 52 parking stalls for the 26 units. Landscaping, in the last neighborhood meeting, I mentioned that it would be turf, and this is not going to be anything that's not permitted or that's not drought friendly. It will comply with all of the city's landscaping standards. There's traffic, noise, light, and glare impacts. As staff said, the city has performance standards for that for all projects. There will be no unnecessary glare. We did our best to kind of buffer to the extent possible from the single family. We'll install landscaping. Traffic is a really hard one to address because I live by a school. I know how challenging traffic is around schools during peak hours, but the scope of this project per the trip generation provided just does not trigger any significant traffic improvements. The traffic is bad, and I know that, and I recognize that, and you know, I just really hope that the Paseo and the sidewalk improvements really help protect the pedestrians in the area with the small increase in traffic. And then water usage was also brought up, but as staff said, we did a water and sewer capacity study that showed that, city services could support the change in land use. And so then we're here at City Council for an additional opportunity to hear from the public. So next steps, just because I know we're not talking about what the project looks like, but so following an approval action, the project would still be required to submit to the city for the actual site plan. It would be required to be reviewed under the city's multifamily residential review. It would be the multifamily residential design review entitlement under the multifamily design standards. So staff will route the project to all of the applicable agencies, traffic included, and will check for building setbacks, required parking, open space and landscaping, traffic, fencing and screening and buffering, as well as the building facades and finished material. You know, the elevations are a work in progress, and we've submitted a couple different iterations, and I understand we're not quite there yet, but I mean, we want to integrate into the neighborhood. We want it to look like the houses around it, and we know it's also in the Loma Vista specific plan, and that has design guidelines as well that we're going to follow. So there's still another hurdle to get over following action tonight. And then I have my question slide, but I have a couple of like my backup slides that I just wanted to share. So this is what Mackenzie was referring to with the conceptual lotting pattern. You know, we prepared this at staff's request to see what future development could look like. Nothing, you know, it's kind of like a dangerous thing to share because this is our concept to connect to the trail. There's been no entitlements submitted that reflect the residential developing this way. But this is if it were just to continue in the way that it is, this is what it would look like. So I wanted to show that conceptual lotting with the trail connection. And that completes my presentation.
Thank you, Kelsey, for your presentation. Are there questions for the applicant at this point?
Quick.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the conceptual plan for the...
The lotting or the site plan?
Like, one slide back there, that one.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm realizing that this is conceptual and, you know, this could happen, might not happen, it's not part of this project. Having looked at this piece of land and the area, it was difficult for me to come up with a concept of how this was going to potentially look. And I realize this is not part of what we're going to be considering. This was helpful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey. We might have more questions in a few minutes. Thanks. Anyone else from the applicant group that want to comment on this? No? I don't mean to look at you, but you all seem like maybe you might be connected to this. All right. Let's, anyone else wishing to comment on this project? For, against, question, comments? You just step on up here and push the button so the little red light comes on, and if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, that would be great.
All right. Brendan Daly, 3190 Buckingham Avenue. I live in the complex right across. So a couple things I wanted to address, and I took some notes. So Locan and Ashland, there was a similar project that was rejected. So that's one intersection down, same kind of density. It was brought up about Temperance and Ashland, the apartment complex there. That's not an intersection where kids cross, and I think in the way they were set, just to make clarification. So 2 calls about dogs really is not relevant to what's going on there. The school also changed where you could pick up your kids. You guys might not be aware of this. The whole front of the school now is bus only. So the cars are now backed up all the way to Ashland to pick up their kids where they used to park in front of the school. So that whole area is now impacted with, and they stop in the middle of the street, you know, to pick up their kids or making U-turns. It's chaos on there. Also to address the general planning question you had about increase in usage, It might not be a set thing, but there needs to be set requirements that are fulfilled, not waived, you know, like the traffic study, so, which I'm gonna get into in a second. From our last discussion, the traffic study was done during COVID that they did this. And the numbers that you used were factors out of the books that they used for calculation, a couch calculation, as I call it. No one came out and looked at it. Since COVID, if you're familiar with the area, all those houses that they built up, plus the huge apartment complex, one intersection up, Leonard and Ashland, right? And you're trying to tell me there's no impact as it is now? We have pictures that we've taken just in over a couple of days. You could see the impact there. If someone actually did their study and sat there, they will see. You guys, the Planning Commission already said, and our young lady already said, they're worried about that intersection. They have concerns about it, and they have concerns based on the calculations done pre-COVID, old numbers that aren't relevant. And if you guys look at your city planning requirements, it states in there that 2 years old, any study 2 years old has to be redone. If there's a major impact to the area, which those apartment buildings and all those houses have, that study should have been done. Waived or not waived, I don't know if these people actually went out there and did their job, but as a resident and as an engineer, I'm appalled, you know? So, and I think I got one more thing. Lastly, if you guys want to improve citizen outreach, they need to expand how far the notifications go out for these projects. It's ridiculous. We have to do word of mouth, Facebook, we have to get together. They did a great job with taking our names and made sure we got notified if we were in the other meetings. But if there's a neighbor that's not involved, and, you know, we don't hear about it until last minute, you know. If you guys really want to do something for the citizen, I think you need to change those requirements.
Thanks for your comments. How far we notify is a long-standing challenge. If you want us to look at those pictures, if you can hand them to the city clerk or to Rebecca up here, we'll take a peek at them. Thanks. 10 cents a copy. Okay. You know what, if you're going to say much more than that, why don't you wait till you can come to the microphone? Do you mind? Just hold that thought and let's hear Brent, and then tell us what you're going to tell us. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Brent Burdine. Frequently come up here. I attend the meetings, at least. And this is one thing I've been noticing. This is a constant on the meetings, is like every development I've seen that's come before the board here, it's been high density, high density, high density. Within the last 6 months, there's been 3 meetings on 3 different projects, all on high-density projects. And, you know, I'm very concerned about the city of Clovis. You know, I hate to use words like diversity, but whatever happened to other type of home residences? I'm concerned about why not keep some areas of single-home, low-density housing areas for zoning? Does everything have to be density, high density, or are we going to change the name of our city to the city of high density Clovis? Just last meeting, the city was talking about, because of the water demand, raising our water rate 60%. Plus, you guys are going to be floating a bond issue to build more water treatment facilities to provide additional water to additional houses that are coming in. You're doing high-density housing, you're creating greater demand, you're dealing with a scarcity of resources such as power and water. And let's not forget money at that, because you're going to have to go out to bond issues. It seems like it comes to a point where maybe pick and choose your diversity issues. And if you come up with a couple things that also we talked about, need to be clarified, and that is, what is affordable housing? Here in California, if you're on Social Security or collecting disability, you're looking at an average of $1,200 to $1,300 a month. Or what is a working wage? 2 meetings ago, we had a developer, I think it was for Wilson Homes, talked about a new high-density area, affordable housing, starting at $400K. Is that how Clovis decides what affordable housing is? Is affordable housing in Clovis $400K? So, and what is the housing inventory regarding
moderate density, low density, high density, because everything's been coming at high density. Everything is 300K higher. Is there any sort of balance? Is there any sort of kind of harmony with the rest of Clovis? I still think that there still needs to be areas that you need to be looking at for low density. How is this described here? Is very low density zones, single family units. We just had a developer last week talk about, hey, low density housing, single development is what people want. People are wanting to move to Clovis and buy into that. Sometimes it seems like you're trying to force that round hole through a square peg or something like that. Anyway, these people also brought up about public notice. I've come across that issue several times. Sometimes the notice goes out into a Fresno building trade magazine, and that you have to go and it's in Fresno. It's very difficult to find out when the public notice goes out. We live in a time where we get so much on our phones. You're not utilizing social media. You're not utilizing even basic media by using the special media for the public notice. We can do so much better for public notice. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what's the...
It's already on, you're good.
You can hear?
Yeah.
Okay, hello. My name is Laura Bacigalupi. I live in the gallery, which is directly across from the Reagan Center at the corner of Ashland and DeWolf. And I'm against this rezoning of that particular property because of, one, the traffic. We cannot get out of the gallery during certain times of the day, and it's not just on the days that school is intending, it's also on days that they have social events at the Reagan Center. For example, soccer, baseball, football, swimming. I mean, there's days, and then on Sundays, we have 3 churches that have church services there at the Reagan Center, which also makes traffic real fun. So we can't get out of there, and so that makes a big difference for us. So we don't want it. And I'm part of the 800 people, 800 foot from that particular property, and many of my neighbors who are a little bit further down never heard about it, and we are gathering signatures to stop this because, one, they have not, I looked at the city planning thing, I read the whole thing, and it doesn't address a lot of things. Again, like one gentleman said, it wasn't, a lot of the traffic issues weren't current, they were from 2022 during COVID. And so I contacted the Clovis PD, and I asked them about it, and they said that they only have 2 community officers who work in that particular area, and one is on disability. I'm not sure whether he or she is still on disability, but he says that they're concerned because they're saying that if they don't get more officers, the crime rate is going to go up. And then we also have another, whatever you want to call affordable housing, I call them low-income housing, there at Leonard and Ashland. And then there's another one going up at Leonard and Loma Vista. So we've got now 3 different areas now in that particular area around the Reagan Center, which is going to cause us more traffic. We can't handle it. We just can't handle it. And a lot of the environmental issues that they talked about do not talk about the fact that we're sitting there with our gas cars running, trying to get out of our complex, and we can't get out. And like I said, this thing didn't say anything about that kind of stuff. It didn't look at those things. Now, I'm concerned that you're pushing this because of the fact that you lost a lawsuit from a woman just recently regarding affordable housing, and now you're pushing affordable housing on us, and we can't handle it out there. There's a lot of, Ashland right now at Leonard all the way to McCall is blocked off because of building. And so we can't get around. We can't get around. They've got part of Leonard closed off. It's a mess. So we're very concerned about that. I'm concerned the fact that you guys are doing this because of the lawsuit. And then also the fact that especially the people in the gallery, and I don't know about the people over in the other area over at Loken, and they didn't get notices at all. And so we're starting to go around and we're getting signatures. And I hate to say it, but if you push this issue on this particular piece of property, which we don't want, and we've put money into our homes, we are planning to file a class action lawsuit against the city of Clovis, against the county of Fresno, and the owner of that particular property. Thank you.
So just to put one thing to rest, there is no relationship between your newspaper in your hand and this piece of property, because as was stated earlier, this doesn't help us at all in that meeting the needs of that. And maybe you won't believe me, but there's no connection. This parcel is not part of that discussion. So you can put that to rest. This doesn't help us at all in our housing needs. So just to be clear, that's not what's happening here, and these are market rate apartments. So to Kate, right, when you were talking about, what about you? Like, how do you enter the housing market? I think what's interesting is the phrase up there was the missing middle kind of stock. And I think what's interesting is housing is one thing, housing ownership is something entirely different. I think maybe that's what I've sort of dawning on me now that it's not always about volume, it's about what can you afford to buy. So I think there's a couple things, but to your point, there's no connection between that lawsuit and this parcel. Other parcels, potentially, but not that one. So, fair enough. So let's just leave. I just wanted to put that one thing to bed. That's not related. So, others, please.
I won't mention the newspaper article.
Thank you. It's okay.
Stephen Lopez. I live in Camden Place across the street, and it is the southwest corner development by Wilson Homes. We have two entrances to our development. One is off of Ashland on Blackwood. The other one is off of Bel Air and DeWolf. If you have to go north in the morning to go to work, good luck. Because the traffic as it is now, the traffic coming to turn left to drop kids off at the school backs all the way up to Locan. So if you're trying to make a right to go out and make either a left or a U-turn, good luck. If you're going out to Bel Air, good luck making a left turn there too, because that traffic backs up from Ashland almost all the way to the canal sometimes. There have been accidents behind my house on DeWolf, because my backyard backs up to DeWolf. There have been accidents out there where cars ended up in the planter because other cars were speeding through the left turn lane to try to get all the way to Ashland. And the other problem I have with this being multi-story is that you have crosswalks right there, and we have the trail that goes through our development and ends right there. You have kids from the Reagan Center, from elementary school all the way through high school, coming through there on their bikes, on their skateboards, on their scooters, and by foot. Many of them without parents. There's no crossing guard, there's nothing there. And then you put a multi-story building there that adds to the visual impairment, plus a driveway that's too close to that intersection, you're just asking for trouble. You know, and we brought these concerns up at the very first meeting. I, for one, I guess I live just a little past the 800 feet. We never got a notice, even though it affects us. And I would ask that you consider extending that requirement because, again, we have two entrances. What we have now is people that get stuck in traffic, cut through from Blackwood, and go out on Bel Air because they don't want to sit and wait for lights. And they cut through our neighborhood, and they don't go the speed limit through the neighborhood, and you have kids walking through the neighborhood. This lady also mentioned the weekend events there. They're not just weekends, there's evenings. There's baseball, there's marching band practice, which we hear sometimes till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. We hear the baseball announcements till sometimes 8 or 9 o'clock at night. You know, and I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying there's activities. Saturdays and Sundays, there is soccer out there. somebody was asking about the street parking because of the requirements. They park in the red. They park all the way to the corner. And one of my neighbors is Clovis PD. I mentioned it to him once before, and he looked and he called it in, and some of the cars got cited. But they do it every single time there's an event there. So, you're mentioning 52 parking spaces, I believe it was, for 26 units. What they told us at the meetings was it's actually 27 units because one is for an on-site manager. So that makes it 27, per their words. But either way, 52 parking spaces equals 2 per unit. Where do visitors park? Because they can't park on Ashland. They can't park on the Wolf, so they're either going to park at the school and walk over, or they're going to park in our neighborhoods and walk over. And that's something we'd like to avoid. You know, we have enough traffic, and we have our kids, and in my case, grandkids that come and play, and not that they're in the street, but there's just, I had a pickup pull through there and lose a tire right on the corner of my house. You know, right on the corner as he turns, because I'm right on the corner of White Ash and Bel Air. So we voiced the opinion at the very first meeting that we realize they've made an investment. They need to see a return on their dollar. I respect that. But that sticks out like a sore thumb. When you have nothing but single-family units on 3 sides and a school on the other, and you look at those buildings, it's an eyesore. And I threw out the concept of, why not do the old-fashioned way that you don't see anymore and build some fourplexes or some triplexes where residents could actually have a little piece of their own yard instead of a community play area and have some privacy and maybe even a garage. And the only response I got from the original young lady that did the original talk was, well, he can't make the return of his dollar on that. And my question to that is, why is that our problem? And I don't mean to be rude, but when you're going to invest in something, you should do your homework ahead of time. Not go buy a piece of property and then try to change all the rules. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate them.
I just want to add one more thing. There's
Wait,
similar.
you don't get a do-over.
Yes, I do.
I'm just kidding.
There's similar 1 acre, 2 acre homes right next to that. So if that happens, what's going to set the precedent that the next guy says, and why can't I build that? He built. You rezone right there. What makes him different than me? And if you look at the view plan, there's a lot of those right there. All of a sudden, you have a little community of multifamily homes right there. So
Thanks.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Michelle Schwartz, and I live at Camden Place, 3226 Sussex Avenue. And there's several of us here that are from the same neighborhood. So there was a couple things I just wanted to add, in addition to the comments about some of the public concerns addressed at the previous meetings. One of the biggest things is the safety of the pedestrians, students, whatever you want to call it, but it's the pedestrians that cross that intersection, whether it's going to school or just taking a walk around the Reagan Center, which there's a lot of people that walk that area throughout the day. And to the point that was made previously about the entrance and exit that's on DeWolf Avenue, based on the schematics and kind of the overall plan at this point, if you look at DeWolf, the way that would exit onto DeWolf, there would not be very much room, if any, to put a middle divider there, because it's double laned, it's a turn lane heading eastbound on Ashland, and there's 2 double lines, and then there's the northbound lane. So putting a divider there, I don't think would mitigate the issue of people being able to turn and head north onto DeWolf coming out of that exit. I would ask the council to please go back and take a look at that intersection at various times of the day to address that and look at that as a concern. In addition to what was previously mentioned is, you know, another concern that's been talked about is setting the precedence. So rezoning, going from a low density to a high density, and approving a build like this in our area, what's to say it's not going to set a precedence for other people to come and want to do the same thing? We already have a 260 apartments, I believe it is, 260 give or take, that was just built or is in the process of being built and almost complete at Leonard and Ashland. That itself is already going to cause a lot of issues with traffic congestion. And I say that because from DeWolf heading northbound at Ashland, you're going from a center lane coming from Shields, and it doesn't get to double until you pass the intersection in front of the school. So there's a lot of congestion there. And I myself, I got in an accident there. Wasn't my fault. It was somebody who was trying to make a second lane heading northbound on DeWolf, okay? The same thing for Ashland heading eastbound. Once you pass DeWolf, it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane right in front of Reagan Elementary. So it goes into 1 lane right before the light, and then boom, you have a 260 complex apartment right there. So, you know, just the congestion around that area. You also have the apartment complex that's going in off of Leonard, between Gettysburg, yeah, it's like Loma Vista. That's another apartment complex that's going on. One of my other biggest things is a lot of us have been living in this neighborhood since it was developed 15 years ago. Okay, and some of us moved out there for, you know, the conceptual of the Loma Vista plan, right? And I can tell you over the years, we've watched the rezoning out there. McCaffrey's rezoned several times, Leo Wilson's rezoned several times, Leonard, Locan and Ashland, DeWolf and Ashland, all the way down to Leonard. There's been a lot of rezoning going on out there, and the concept I know has changed, and probably for some good reasons, but the congestion, and I feel like we're being packed in like sardines out there. There's a lot of rezoning going in, and I don't think people are looking at those of us who've lived there for a long time. That's our investment. Our investment is our home, and we want to stay living there, but it's going to come to the point eventually people are going to start feeling squeezed out. And so I just would like the council to consider that. And I would ask that you please go out there and relook at that area, look at it at different times of the day, and get a good feel of what that potentially could do to that area. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Please. Hello.
Hello. My name is Leslie Granite, and I also live in that same tract. One of the things that hasn't been brought up is, yes, there are 2 entrances and exits. However, the one on Ashland, you cannot make a left turn if you are leaving. There's no light there. There is only one way to turn, and that's right. That forces you into the intersection with the light that you have to then make a U-turn if you want to go west rather than east. And so, again, I showed you the pictures. Those pictures were taken at 8 o'clock in the morning. And you can see that the traffic is not only backed up all the way down between DeWolf and Locan, but it goes beyond that. It goes to Temperance. And what you don't see there is that intersection. So I don't see how there is any room when you are building another apartment complex that's up the street, and it's not even done yet, and that's going to throw all the more traffic into it. So that's really my major concern, is it's an accident waiting to happen now, and there's children that cross there, and they don't always pay attention to the lights, and there's not always crossing guards out there to help them. So I don't want to see tragedy and bloodshed out there. It's just, you know, we're better than that in Clovis.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Thanks for the pictures as well.
You're welcome.
Can I get a question real quick for you, Ms.?
Granite.
Or
Granite?
Granite?
Yes.
So if single-family homes come, then you'll be okay with that? Okay. Even if those generate more traffic than the, multifamily. Well, I understand that. Yeah. If somebody owns that property, they want to do something. But I just want to understand the traffic though, but if a traffic study comes with single family per all those homes, even if it's higher, you would be for that, or most of it? Okay.
If you guys are gonna have a conversation, you gotta come back up here.
I just wanted, you nodded your head, so I just wanted to understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Allison Nahara. I'm actually with Regency Property Management, and I'm actually attending tonight on another item on the agenda, but I actually so happen to live off of Sean DeWolf in Loma Vista. I've been a resident of Loma Vista for 12 years. I have 2 children, 11 and 14, and even though my children go to Red Bank and Clark, we actually frequent the Clovis East Sporting Complex quite regularly. I have both of my kids in sports, so I've actually been at Clovis East on weeknights for soccer games, soccer practices, swim meets, and different other, sporting events for my kids. And I admit the traffic is bad, even on a weeknight during soccer practice. It can be kind of scary sometimes trying to find parking along Ashland or DeWolf, especially when the light changes and cars are crossing pretty fast going through the intersection, and it already feels like there's not enough parking anyways for sporting events. And I can't imagine another complex going there on the corner. But I also want to mention too that working in property management, I've seen a lot of the trends lately, even with some of the multifamily housing, and due to inflation, we actually have a lot more homes and even single-family units and multifamily units being inhabited by multiple people. And trying to accommodate just 2 vehicles per unit, I can tell you, is almost nearly impossible. You have a lot of people that are, have multifamilies or, more than just one couple or roommates that are going to be renting a single unit. And if you want to know what parking restrictions look like, if you just go down the Heights at Loma Vista on Locan, you'll see what not enough parking looks like. There are cars lined all the way down Locan. And I can assure you, even in an apartment complex, 2 spaces per unit is not going to be enough, especially with guests. And that's going to make the parking a little bit more congested there on that intersection. And yeah, I would hate to see that go in. It is already bad, and I encourage you guys, if you're able to, just go to a sporting event, and you'll see. And I'm not even there during 7 or 8 o'clock or 2 p.m. I'm there after on a weeknight or sometimes on the weekends, and it can be bad. And as you know, the Clovis East Sporting Complex, it's quite large. It's not just used by the schools, but also by Clovis Unified Private Leagues, that utilize those softball complexes, the soccer fields. There's a lot of events and a lot of games that go on, and it does get quite crowded. So I would just strongly urge you guys, if at all possible, to not put in a multifamily unit there.
Thanks, Allison. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Doesn't count.
Very much.
Okay, we don't need that part on the record.
Okay.
Just kidding, just kidding.
Mayor, council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am coming to this meeting, I'm against this project, I have been since the beginning, but I would like to give an alternative to the owners of something that is happening in Clovis. I learned
Would you share your name before you go much farther?
Okay. My name is David Rushop.
Thank you, David.
I've lived in the Camden housing tract. I'm about 4 houses from that project.
Okay.
I don't really so much have a problem with that project, except if they put the map back up there of the zoning of all the different areas. If you were to take that same map and make those all apartments, you would see what the problem is. There is no reason why they could not do the same thing that they've done here. The North Project, that area was originally designed and planned for single-family residences. And I think, Mayor, you hit the nail right on the head when you said, boy, this is a big jump. This is not pride of ownership or anything else. At this point, there isn't even a plan to have an on-site manager. They said if there's a problem, they would do that.
but I remembered at the development meeting, they said that they wanted to maybe add 27 and have an extra one, and the planning department said you'd have to go back through the environmental reviews, you better leave it at 26. I wanted to pass this around. I'm sorry, I'm disappointed. I thought I could put this on an overhead screen, and I was told by a civil engineer that I met with today that I could do that. So he and I will have a conversation.
I think overhead projectors are antiques, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, that's my vintage. I know what an overhead projector is.
I just thought you would have a different way to view it up there.
I'm just kidding.
Clovis has a program that's happening right now, and it's very, very interesting to me. I'm a earthwork and paving contractor. I'm retired now for 40 years, so I'm pretty familiar with all the street sections and everything else. And I agree with all of my neighbors, and I appreciate that you all have a sense of fairness about what's going on here, and you maybe even have some questions about this. Clovis has two areas that I know of. I'm sure there's more. I drove by near the roller skating rink over at Gettysburg and Peach, I think it is, and I kept looking at that. I had to go around the block 3 times because there wasn't any parking in front of the house, and there was a house, and then there were 2 houses in the backyard. And a gentleman at the planning department meeting literally kind of voiced his opinion very sternly and said, listen, you all need to understand this single-family residence thing, this is a thing of the past. And he said that I could put 2 houses in my backyard if I wanted to, and you couldn't do a thing about it. And then he said, in fact, if I wanted to tear my house down, I could put 4 houses there. I want to give an example of an area that is at another area similar to the one at Peach and Gettysburg, and it is at Sierra and Villa. It is, I'll help you with the math, I went out and measured both areas, so these are gross square footages, so they're a little bit more than what is actually there, but the number of houses for this gross square footage is the same as the number of houses as the gross square footage at Ashland and DeWolf. This basically has 12 houses on 50,000 square feet. They have 80,000 square feet, which based on the same program, big house in the front, 2 little houses in the back, they could put 16 houses there. We questioned this at the first meeting and the second meeting, and they said it isn't financially viable. Well, I disagree with that. You build a really 3,000 square foot house in the front and 2 1,800 square foot houses in the back. I would be all over that as a retired person living in the front and renting the 2 in the back or renting them all. There's nothing that can stop them from buying houses all over our neighborhood and renting every single one of them. But I just think that I'll give you a way out of some of this, or at least something to consider.
Do you want to just give that to Rebecca? She can share it down here. Thanks.
Numbers, one actually fits in the other. There's 30,000 square feet less than the area of Sierra.
David, I'm going to ask you to wrap up because your 5 minutes is almost up, but if you don't mind wrapping up, that would be great.
No, I don't mind at all, but I appreciate the gentleman at the Planning Commission to bring that to my attention. And I think that's what these owners should do with that property. You would have 16 units there. Granted, you could have, the pro tem mayor is correct. Maybe there's more cars, you know. I'll leave it at that. I think you should consider this type of zoning, which is approved and is homes. It's not
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Manuel Benjamin Garcia.
I'm sorry, would you say your first name again?
Manuel Benjamin Garcia, 3394 Bel Air Avenue, and I actually left you all letters today.
Okay.
So I probably don't need to reiterate everything I left because you can read it. Or do you want me to?
It's totally up to you, right here.
I don't know, you got 5 minutes.
You want to just highlight the...
Yeah, well, I'll highlight just in another area here. But, I mean, overall, traffic is definitely concerning. You've heard that. The new complex, apartment complex in Ashland, that's going to bring over 500 more cars, you know, up and down Ashland Avenue. And, yes, the Loma Vista Marketplace, that's going to bring a lot more people into that area, in that district there, to shop, to eat, fast food, you know, on top of everything else. In addition to, we don't know yet on what the higher density apartments will be in surrounding the marketplace. Pulling out of Bel Air Avenue at DeWolf, where I lived at Camden Place, is challenging. People are flying down DeWolf Avenue, and it's hard to get out, and trying to get out at 7:30 in the morning when school's lined up, cars going straight to drop off their kids, and I have a junior in high school there at Clovis East. It's lined up all the way to the canal. It's tough. I have to make a right-hand turn if I need to go somewhere else and circle all the way up Shields and go down Lucan or Temperance, and as a resident, you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to make a left turn and you know, go where you need to. And the gentleman earlier today talked about police, you know, more police is probably needed, and in that area, police traffic control is underperforming. I see people speeding in DeWolf, and I'm trying to get out of my neighborhood, running red lights, on and on and on. Not making full stops when they should, and pedestrians, there's been accidents there involving pedestrians, bicyclists, and even children at the school. It's a large complex on a small lot, and, yeah, thank you, Mayor Ashbeck and Councilmember Pierce for mentioning about going from zoning from low to high, just in a big jump. That is a big concern. And, you know, we'll be setting a precedent, as you mentioned, you know, if that's done for any vacant lot anywhere in the city of Clovis and any neighborhood, it's just going to open the doors for developers, you know, put in tall units, 3-story units and such. And then parking there, it's a large complex and a small lot. Parking will be an issue. The lady from Regency, you know, she has hands-on experience, mentioned it. It's just common sense. 2 parking stalls for each unit, and none are garaged. Like at Temperance and Ashland, right up the road, they're garaged. They have garages there too, in addition to, you know, covered parking. It just doesn't fit the look and the model of, you know, our current area that we have. I want to point out many details of the proposed project are still sketchy and up in the air. You know, there's still a lot of details that are being left out, and I think you caught that today. But overall, traffic concerns and moving up the zoning will set a new precedent here in the city of Clovis, and, you know, just need some control and maybe look at some sort of amendment on that. That's all I got.
Thank you for your comments, appreciate it. Anyone else? All right, we will close. Is that a yes? I wasn't sure.
Hi, my name's Andre Metzler. I live on the corner of Ashland and DeWolf in the Camden Place. I live directly adjacent from this property. I know everybody's hammered the traffic results, and I'm not going to get into that, but I will tell you there's been multiple accidents. I hear it all the time. I look over the block wall, see it happening. It is a dangerous intersection that if this gets built, it's going to cause even more problems. And working for Clovis Unified, one thing I will say, Clovis East, Rayburn, and Reagan are all overpopulated right now. So are we going to talk about that? Because I work at Janet Young, the sister school to Reagan. They have to bus kids from Reagan to our school because of overflow. So that's an issue too that maybe we should talk about, because that's just going to add more problems. I don't know how many kids would be in this unit, but it's already packed as it is. So just wanted to bring that up.
Thanks for your comments.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Simrabir Sumo.
Would you mind pulling the microphone up a little bit? You're a little taller. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks.
No worries. So, my name is Simrabir Sumo. I am a senior at Clovis East High School. Based off of all the comments I've been hearing for the past hour, 2 hours or so, a little long, the main concerns I've been hearing is on traffic and the safety of the pedestrians. For the point of the traffic, I've been driving by that intersection for the past 7 years. I agree, yes, there is traffic. School starts at 8:36 and ends at 3:16. From 8:16 to 8:36 is the peak hours of traffic, and that's only for 20 minutes. And after school ends, 3:16 to 3:30. Any times after that, if you'd like to see, it is dead. You can drive by. I've driven by multiple times because I play volleyball at Clovis East. I've been there at possibly every single time you can imagine, from 5 a.m. for practices, leaving at 9 p.m. after practices. It is dead silent. So I'd highly encourage council members to drive by at any times, except for, I agree, there's plenty of traffic due to the school, because school starts at 8:36, ends at 3:16. There's a lot of traffic, I agree. I've been stuck in that traffic. I've been late to classes. I've messaged teachers that I'm going to be late because of the traffic. But it's only during those times. And about the matters of the safety, if you check on Ashland, the Ashland Street, there is no sidewalk that has been created for students to walk by. I've seen many of times where children are almost walking on the road in the bike lane, which that shouldn't be there. And if this property was created, then a sidewalk would be created for them to walk and keep them safe. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate your comments. What happened to the days when school started like 8:30, like a regular hour, 8:36 to 3:16? Okay. Bus schedules. Thank you. Thanks. All right. Anyone else? All right. We'll close the public portion of this item. I'll bring it back to the council for comment and eventual action. I do have one question on parking for somebody. Are there guest parking spaces?
Yes, there will be, well, they're required to provide 26 covered parking spaces, and then the same for uncovered. So they do have that. It depends on the management of how many spaces are required per unit. Outside of that, but each one will get 2 units. And if it's a larger unit with 3 bedrooms, they'd be required to have additional parking.
So there's 52 parking spots or parking spaces on the project?
That would be required if it's 2 bedrooms, but if they're 3-bedroom units, then there'd be required an additional parking.
So we're not talking exactly, we don't know how many parking
Correct.
spaces because we don't have any details specifically.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes, I did want to kind of clarify a couple of things.
Of course.
And so just with noticing, I think you guys are familiar with our noticing requirement for the 800 feet. So we did provide that notification. We also did provide notification to the neighbors that attended the neighborhood meeting in February. We sent notices to those neighbors as well. And I'll go ahead and pass it along to Thad just to kind of clarify a couple of things related to traffic.
Okay. And just before we go, the noticing requirement by the state is 300 feet?
Yes, and ours is 800.
And ours is 800 for a general plan plus rezone together?
A general plan amendment.
So we could go back to that someday, but the noticing requirement is very low in California. It's 300 feet, and Clovis does 800, as we just had a conversation about this. But we can do better, and we're going to hold on to your comment if you don't mind just a second. But I think it's a comment that comes up from periodically a lot, so thanks for that. We're going to move on to staff, so hold that thought. Okay, hold on. All right, so let's go back to traffic.
So there are a lot of questions about the traffic study. Just to clarify, consultant performed a trip generation analysis to determine if there was a traffic study needed for the project, and the conclusion was that there wasn't a need for a traffic study. So the trip generation determined how many trips are coming from the project, and just a couple of the numbers that were brought up were 11 peak trips in the morning and 13 peak trips in the evening. That is compared to what would be about 5 or 6 for what the zoning is currently. So, in addition to that, in addition to those being low increases, we didn't meet our other guidelines of needing at least 100 peak trips to require a traffic study. So, because of all those thresholds that we didn't meet,
there was not a traffic study on this, and so I know there's a lot of, reference to a traffic study for this project, but there was not a traffic study, just trip generation, analysis.
Trip generation by a specific project.
Yeah, just for this
Not
specific
to
project.
generally the problems in the broader area as we've all
Correct,
established.
correct.
Okay, that's fair. Okay,
Hey, quick
thank you.
question.
Yeah.
When was that done?
The trip generation doesn't matter. It goes by the, industry standards. They take it out of they look at, calculations from what is determined, how many trips would come from a certain type of development, and that's how it's brought about. You don't go out in the field and determine how many cars are going, because the project doesn't exist.
It's just a math problem. It's a math
It's a math
calculation.
calculation,
If you build this, you get that.
Correct.
Yeah. Vaughn?
And with regards to that, per the traffic count, the LSA, that was in 2022, the memo itself. The proposed density change, the multifamily, generates lower trips than the proposed single family that we have in the general plan. Is that correct?
No. If you consider this property having 6 homes, right? I think it's allowed to, for the density it is right now, it have 6 houses on it. It produces about a little less than half of the trip generation that the proposed project would.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand what it says here on page 333. It says multifamily units are anticipated to generate lower trips than single-family detached houses permitted under low-density land use in the city's general plan. So what am I not understanding in that?
Okay, sorry, 2 different terminologies there.
Okay.
It is determined that this type of development would generate less trips per unit, but there's more units.
Mm-hmm.
So then the calculation ends up being that it produces more.
Okay.
So there's 26 units, but out of the 26 units, they produce less trips than a single-family home would generate.
Okay.
But because there's 26 units, the calculation ends up being more trips.
In the end, because there's more units. Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Any other questions for staff at the moment? I have one question. So this item is just 2 parts of the puzzle, right? It's the GPA and the rezone, no map, no nothing, and that's an administrative function, right? Is there ever a time where those 3 things would have come to us at the same time? Because what to me right now, it seems like a pretty high risk. We can approve if we chose these 2 items and have really no idea of any of the details. Is there enough parking? Can you even build 26 units? What if you have 10 3-bedroom and you need 65 parking spaces? I feel like there's so many unknowns. What's the upside and downside from a property owner's perspective to just do these 2 items and then never return here again to the council?
Currently, our process for multifamily developments would not come as part of the general plan and rezone package. If a project had a vesting tentative tract map, it would go to planning commission. It could tie in to council. However, multifamily projects, because of the way that they're permitted in our code and the objective standards that we have in place, they would go through a separate process, which is approved at the director level.
Okay. I should have known that. I was just testing you. I'm just kidding. Thanks. All right.
I have one question.
Sure.
So the biggest concern seems to be the traffic situation, and it seems that even with this development nowhere in the picture, there's issues with Ashland and DeWolf. So separate from the conversation about a development there, is there anything that, whether it's a conversation with Clovis Unified because it's school-related issues, or is there anything that could be done aside from this project question about the already existing traffic issues on Ashland and DeWolf? And maybe because this is a project question, this isn't the time for that. But it seems like we've identified a legitimate issue regardless of what happens on this agenda item tonight?
I think we could certainly take it to our, I don't know, we haven't had a quarterly school board, city council meeting in a while, but we could certainly take it there as a discussion. I suspect this happens at every high school, is my theory.
Well, I know a lot of the elementary schools too have
You mean the complex where you have all the schools at one time? Or staff could certainly reach out. I think the law enforcement question is, I think we only have two traffic officers right now. So there aren't enough twos to go around anywhere to, Mr. Rollins' first comment about officers and needing more. So, but I mean, there are other things that PD could do, but I think it's a fair question about school traffic, because it's getting more intense around Clovis East in particular. When Clovis South opens, it might relieve it a little bit, but, I mean, it's hard to say. So this project can't relieve Clovis East traffic problems, for sure. But we can certainly bring it up with the district and talk about it and see what we can do, or if there's anything to do.
And then just kind of a follow-up on that too, as was kind of pointed out, the concept of setting a precedent, but if we acknowledge that there are potential issues, what do we do in terms of looking at that geographic area, seeing those other semi-open lots? I mean, with single residences on them, they're larger acreage, likely at some point to be developed as something else. How do we assess the concerns for a single development on a specific lot there when it is reasonable to expect that there's going to be other development on the surrounding and adjacent lots? How can we appropriately consider a single development knowing that other developments are going to be coming right in the same area and contributing to concerns that are being addressed with just this first one? Does that make sense? Okay.
I'm going to say we can, but they might have a better answer. They're smarter than me.
Sorry. So this project, I mean, we wouldn't be able to assume what those would be. We would just have to take them in on a case by case. So if another development came in with some similar proposal, then we'd have to take into consideration the impacts and the studies that those would prepare to see what impacts or what recommendations staff would provide based on that analysis.
So would there be kind of an evolution of those considerations? So if we did approve this project and it went in, then when another one came along, the existing impacts of this development would then kind of be part of the consideration for whether or not to look at that type of development for the next parcel?
Potentially, depending on the type of project. So we would do an analysis, we require a trip gen analysis, and if those didn't exceed the peak trips, then we would have to determine, do we need a traffic study or not, just based off of the trip generation not being exceeded.
Just a quick follow-up. If this council approves this general plan amendment, we're not obligated in the future to make any similar such changes for the remainder land. Is that correct?
The review right now is just for this specific site.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So let's weigh in here.
Quick water question. So did this property come with any FID rights at all, or is that no more any water? Did we gain anything from them?
Yeah.
Are they within FID?
Yeah, it's in the FID area, so yes.
So we did gain, okay.
So what's your pleasure?
I'm ready to make a motion. Approve an environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for General Plan Amendment 2023-02 and rezone 2023-002.
I'll second the motion.
So just for the public, we're going to handle each of them independently, so we can approve hypothetically this item and not approve the remainder, but the environmental work for this project would stand, right? Is that what you're saying? So just so you know, that's what we're going to act on each of them separately. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's a motion and a second to approve the first item. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4 with 1 opposed.
General Plan Amendment 2023-002, amend the general plan as part of the second general plan amendment cycle of 2024, redesignating the subject property from low-density residential 2.1 to 4.0 dwelling units per acre and open space designations to high-density residential 15.1 to 30 dwelling units per acre designation.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second to amend the general plan. Any discussion?
I'm still a little bit concerned because Long had said previously, and I really agree with the idea that we have these policies in place, whether it's for developers to understand, it's like, here's what you have to do. Here's the process that we have in place for you to achieve your goal. And I feel like whether it's a general plan amendment or whatever it might be, we have a developer, a landowner who has followed our process. But I'm struggling with how do we handle it when we want those people to have security in knowing when they do what we tell them to do and when they do it how we tell them to do it or how the state tells them to do it from different things, that they're going to be able to have confidence that they did what they were supposed to do and they're going to get the desired outcome. But at the same time, we have community members who have concerns, legitimate concerns. How do we process those things? And sometimes I feel like when it comes to council, I personally don't always feel like I've had enough time to truly digest all of the information, understand, yes, the developer, the applicant did the correct things, they did the right things, they did the community outreach, maybe they even made adjustments and changes based on some of the feedback they had. I see that all the time. We have such great developers in this community who want to be accepted by the neighborhoods they're coming into, and they work really hard at that. And yet there's still concerns from neighbors or what's coming next, or how do we know what the zone changes are going to be and how many categories it's going to jump. So I'm having trouble actually figuring out for myself, philosophically or whatever, really what I think about doing this at this point. And maybe it's part of what you were saying is having it broken up where we're just doing this part tonight, but we don't even know what the actual project is going to be, or what are going to be the issues with parking spaces if they have 3 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms. It just seems a little difficult for me to have what I can stand behind and say, yeah, I think with all things considered, that really was the right way to go. And so I'm not sure how to handle this one.
Go ahead.
You know, I look at the applications that come before us, and first and foremost, we created these processes. So if you wanted a general plan amendment, first you got to go look at the general plan. Does it follow the goals and procedures listed? And it's incumbent upon them, they bring it forward, and then we rely on our staff. And they look at the goals and they list them here. Go 3, go 5, go 6, go 7. They do it for the rezone. And so in other words, they check all those. Then there's their environmental. So for the traffic, there's a trip study. They look at it. If it triggers a traffic study, what the trip analysis does that. Now, if we want to keep changing all that, then we need to start developing the policy straight up front right now. So that way we go, every GPA, traffic, I don't care, regardless of trip analysis comes. So that way, at least the applicant knows this council is going to give us a traffic study all the time. But here, it was clear. The trip analysis was clear. And if we didn't agree with it, we should say, well, I think the 11 is wrong because of, and then state why, instead of just going, oh, I think it doesn't. Because who are we to challenge LSA? But not that we can't, we should sometimes, but we have to be concrete in our decision, so that way it gives whoever comes before us, that property owner, the right to know, the right to develop. And so when I look at the entire project, I say, finally, the students are going to have an area in which now, potentially, when the other areas develop, it's going to go across and they'll be safe. I walk that all the time, and so I see that it's needed. And then I look at the development when it came before, and I think I was still on the planning commission at Temperance and Ashland, same issues. Hardly any traffic issues on that. That was only one exit. And so people were complaining, oh, with that exit, people are gonna go and everyone's gonna U-turn back and get into that apartment complex. Or if they go to Clovis, it's gonna congest the U-turn lane on Ashland going back to Clovis East. I leave at 7:30, I leave at 8, I leave at 8:10. That U-turn is never congested, and the cars coming back home, it's hardly ever congested there. So in other words, that gives me confidence in going, okay, maybe the traffic analysis kind of accurate, pretty good. Same thing with Bullard and Temperance, same issues, same thing. But that apartment complex, I don't see the issues as well. So if we start to see it, I think that the issues that we are seeing tonight, I don't think it's this parcel's issue. I think it is a Clovis Unified issue. But Clovis Unified is addressing that with what? With Clovis South. That, when it is built, would change the traffic flow to that new school with the elementary, with Hirayama, with the middle school, and with the Clovis South High School. So that will change that whole area as they go south to Clovis South. And so I feel that that is something in which the Clovis Unified knows, and they're working with us to improve. Now, with regards to a density transition, I'm going to stick to what I said earlier. That's what a GPA is for. Unless we have a hard policy in which it's going to go from this to that, we have so many low density in this town. Just because a couple have come forward does not mean all we're approving is high density or medium density development. So we have plenty of low density. In other words, we hardly have medium and then medium high at all. And so this is where we are lacking. And I agree with the analysis of if this lot, if we were going to do 6 lots, I see it as more dangerous for the traffic of people going in. I don't know how they're going to draw it. I don't know how it's going to fit, you know, maybe financially, but even just all the safety issues that we stated. It would have been best if all 3 parcels came together, and then we can look at it and go, okay, now they can enter further up, further west, and then it can all be low residential, low, and it'll fit. But to do a parcel like a 1.6 acres, I see where it doesn't fit. That's why this product was given to us. Next, I do agree that we need a variety of housing choice, workforce housing, housing in which, you know, what we heard earlier today, where people can come and start, and then for teachers to be able to live there and go work there, and nurses up at Clovis. We need this housing variety here in Clovis and the housing choice that we need to offer, especially here in the Southeast. And it is separated enough in which it is not like how we did in Southwest, where we put all the apartments together. And so I personally, I feel we have more an issue with it being apartments than with traffic. Traffic is sort of what we painted it over, but truly we are having issues with those. And we want it someplace else, but not here. And then when a developer brings something that we need forward, then we have to have the courage to be able to support it and bring it forward. And it's market rate. So I trust our staff to work with the developers to bring a product that even the mayor will agree to that fits the...
Even the
yeah,
mayor?
even the mayor.
What does that mean again?
And so that's why I'm supporting this.
Okay, so I now don't know where I am. Did somebody make a motion?
Yeah, we have a motion on 15B, a motion, there was a motion and a
And
second.
who was the second? You? All right, and that was your comment on that? And then your comment was, I don't know what to do. I mean, how do you decide? Not, but I mean, how do you judge?
Yeah, I needed a little more.
So I'll just offer one shorter version than that. GPAs are not automatic. You don't get them because you want to. You have to meet these 4 findings that is in the staff report. And to me, it talks about consistent with the actions of the general plan. So this is not exactly, but there's that. detrimental to public interest, health, and safety. You can argue maybe not, but mostly it's number 4. There's a compelling reason for the amendment. So my early days in the Planning Commission, that was the standard. Like, what's compelling about it? So I think that is the way we're going to decide. Just because we have the process doesn't mean you get the land change. So I think that's the subjective part of the role here. And staff and council doesn't always agree, and they may in this case and they may not. But I think for me, these 4 criteria are very simple in terms of a GPA request.
And I understand that, and I agree with that. And that was kind of my point of, I want our developers or our applicants to have that process and understand the points. I guess what I'm struggling to see is there a similar process or checklist for community members, for people who aren't the applicant but are impacted by it, to be able to say, okay, if we disagree with this, this is our ability to come forward and say, you know, this is where we have our input and say, these are our concerns with it, these are the issues, and how does that factor? Because what I'm feeling like is those 2 pieces came together tonight, and the applicant had their checklist in the process to go through, but now it's just those who are concerned about it in the community, hoping that maybe we'll just agree with them and, you know, help them keep this from happening. But the process was accurate, and so I guess that's where my dilemma is in kind of bringing those 2 parts together and then understanding, because I totally see and agree that the applicant has checked the boxes, that, like you say, the general plan, these are the goals, check, 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 check. As far as that part goes, I'm good. I have no problem with the project itself or any of that, but I just don't know where the weight of the other side comes in and how that in our processes kind of factors in.
Well, I think it comes in here, right? They've done their neighborhood meetings, they heard what they heard, they incorporated what they could incorporate, and that's it. So this is their best, right? I mean, I think it's a little bit like that, and I think this is the sort of where you, not mediate, but you say, well, okay, so there's this and it's this, and that is the call, right? And I don't think it'll ever be as easy as maybe we'd be lucky, but as clear as a checklist, right? Because someone is gonna probably walk out here not happy.
Right.
No matter which way it goes. So I think, I mean, your points are good, your points are good. And that's the process of local government. Now, if this doesn't work, and let's say it's approved, and there was comment about we're gonna sue you, that's a choice too. But that's outside our choice. Yeah. So I think it's a little more subjective, I think, than any of us like. All right, so there's a motion.
Mayor, I do want to say this. If our staff disagrees, say there's a traffic study, and the applicant just came and brought a room of people who said, we disagree, we wouldn't give the applicant that leeway. They would have to come in and actually do a counter traffic study to rebut our staff's traffic study. That's how I've always seen it. So in other words, we do hold them to a higher standard. They do have to spend the extra dollars to you know, if it went against what they were proposing. And so I think that's also important to remember whenever there's arguments back and forth.
All right. So there's a motion, let me try this again. There's a motion and a second on this item on the general plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
No. So the motion does carry, 3 in favor, 2 opposed. Oh, I thought I was a no and you were a no.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
And 3 yes. So 2 noes. So the motion on the general plan amendment.
You're a yes.
I'm a no. I'm a no.
Mayor, for the record, I have the motion carried 3-2 with Councilmember Baskel opposed and Councilmember Ashbeck opposed.
That's correct. Does that mean the motion carried? This is a test. That's what I said. Wait, what's happening? Okay, so the motion carries. So to the neighbors, general plan has been approved. No project, but the general plan has been approved. All right?
And then we're at C.
Okay, thank you. You go ahead, take it from here.
Introduce, R 2023-002 ordinance to rezone the subject property from RA single-family residential very low density zone district to the R3 multifamily high density residential zone district.
And I'll second that.
Can I ask a point of clarification? So I have this feeling that this is probably going to pass as well. Is there any way to require this to come back? I am deeply worried if it looks like what I see. I think that is a horrible, sounds like a rerun. Is there any way to bring back a multifamily project for, take a look here? I might be the only one that wants to do that, but I am very uncomfortable. We've just approved something. We have no idea what it's gonna look like, how many parking spaces there are gonna be, if there's even enough place to park. It could go higher, because it could be any number of units, because we just approved a density up to 30 dwelling units an acre. Could be anything, right? So is there any way we could see it before it's final approval?
One minor point before I address that main question, and that is we did have an environmental document here that you've just addressed. That environmental document is based on 26 units, and we have told the applicant that in order to avoid a bait and switch on the environmental, that their project would be limited to what they studied environmentally, or what we required them to study environmentally. So that will be the project size and shape. The aesthetics of it would be subject to the multifamily standards and the Loma Vista requirements as well. Right now, as Mackenzie outlined, our ordinance isn't written to allow multifamily projects to go through any public hearing. So I think that's what I would tell you. But I don't know if it's fair to ask Scott at this point if we could do an evaluation of the particular requirements stemming from the GPA rezone, and whether the uniqueness of that would allow a project to come back or not. And maybe I guess the answer is we could conduct that evaluation and prepare a report back to you to let you know what the outcome is, unless Scott is prepared to have a formal answer.
Certainly, that's one option. I guess I'd be concerned because, again, the city's municipal code is something that's approved by the council, maybe not these 5 individuals here, but by the city council. So the objective standards for multifamily residential development have been adopted, and the process delegated, so to speak, to the director of the department to review without having to have that be brought back to the planning commission, or without having to have that be brought back to the city council. That delegation has already taken place by the council. So my concern would be to place a condition on this particular one, or any project in the future, that, yeah, we're okay approving this, but we want to see the site plan or whatever it is that may come back to the city council. Not to say that it's not allowed, but I guess if ultimately we're going to go that route, that would be something I think I would want to see in an ordinance amendment. Again, a one-off, fine, but if we start to see that, or if the council has a desire to start seeing the site plans for multifamily developments, then, you know, that could be something that we could look at modifying in the ordinance itself, to say that a site plan would have to come back to the city council at some point.
You know, I think there was enough concern with the 5 of us of the jumping of levels of rezone, and maybe to the city attorney's point, maybe we need to come back with some clarification language where we put a stipulation in there that says if the council reserves the right to require it to come back when we have concerns, something to that effect, because I agree. I'm not overly concerned because it's 26 units. It can't be any higher, because if it does, that triggers something and that takes it out. So I'm not overly concerned about that issue, but I think there's enough concern with the process, and I think that's something we can fix that. But I agree.
No, I disagree. I mean, time is of the essence on these sort of things, and if we already delegated it and have put the trust on, they've heard concerns. But if we do every SPR to come forward, which one do we not come forward? Now, that needs to be an added step in which everyone who's using our services are aware of. And so it can't just be, well, I don't know, tomorrow council may add an extra step in which there's an extra hearing in which people can come, and then now, so in other words, you're creating unnecessary burdens that we shouldn't be doing. If we don't like it, change the ordinance, create it, but how do we decide to start going, okay, that one, not this one, not that one? And it gives no certainty now to applicants and to our staff. So to give to the...
Maybe a way to knit these together is if you go from, whatever it is, low density to high, that triggers that very thing. There may be some objective criteria, because if we're gonna start putting more of these neighborhoods and more of these developments, it's all fine, but I am not comfortable. If you'd never shown me that picture, I would probably go, and I trust our staff, but there is no way that the neighbors that live there now would find that in any way, shape, or form transitional from a single-family, Mediterranean, blah, 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 whatever they have out there, Loma Vista, Craftsman. There is no way that image, and I know it's not real, but it's alarming. So I do think we need to look at the ordinance and have some process when you go up 4 zone districts or whatever it is, that we take another look. Because I think the implications are higher than if you went up 2 zone districts, or if you went from low to medium. I'd go, okay, it's not going to be as obtrusive, but I think this is significant, and maybe they'll decide to do 35 units and do an EIR, and then we're going to be right, then what? That might be worth it to them. So I feel like there's got to be some exception to the case where we get to take a look. When you go from low, when you go from 0 to 60, I feel like we need to take another look. So I don't know what that looks like in terms of the ordinance, but I know that's not part of the action here tonight, but I would like to ask consensus that we take a look at that, because we're entering into a territory we've probably never been in before. And we don't do a lot of density in this space, and we'll do more. That's my point. How are we going to navigate this new world order with more of this development? We got to have some off-ramp, because I don't think that's good government to not have any off-ramp. But that's a future discussion. So there's a motion and a second. I know where we are again. Matt?
No, I just wanted to comment on why I was opposing this. It is for those very reasons that we're taking such a jump from what was proposed with single family up to the multifamily stuff. And, and there's significant impacts that people are saying they're going to have on their community. With that said, everybody talked about a lack of resources, not enough police officers, but yet we're going to continue to build and we're going to put more out there. So there's a lot of issues that are occurring out in that Loma Vista area, and just to say yes to a multifamily residential area, I think it's going to impact us more, because it won't be just the 26 units, then it'll be the 126 units, and then the next 240 units. And so, I agree with the mayor in that there's a lot of growth aspects that are affecting our city. And, it's the north end, it's the east end, and we just don't have the infrastructure or the resources to continue to just say yes to everything. That's my opinion of it. I get this is only 26 units, but I do worry about making such a jump from single family to multifamily, and there being significant issues out there with traffic and everything else. Thad even made a comment that he had some concerns with how the project was built, and, could not say yes for sure that that's a safe exit for people to exit out onto DeWolf. So, if we have our own questions within staff on certain things, then it makes it hard for me to say yes to the project. It's not against the project people. I appreciate the fact of how much work they put into it, in trying to develop their properties and do the best they can for what they're doing. But that's, I just think it's, when there's questions that keep coming up with these things, it's hard to say yes to it. So those are my reasons for saying no.
Yeah, I think I would share that. So let's see if we can get to the question here. There's a motion.
Well, I just wanted one comment. No, I think we need to hash it out. If these are the concerns, then when that rezone program that comes forward when we lost that lawsuit, I better hear the same things. Yes,
About
because
what?
if you're so concerned about the rezone, we're gonna have 3,000, parcels or whatever, all those lots are gonna be rezoned. And so, you know, what, because the court makes you say it now, it's gonna be a 5-0 on that day? In other words, we're making these arguments, but yet, we're gonna be forced to do it, and I'm just saying, hey, I better hear those same arguments on that day, and on that day, it should be a concern for the community as we are hearing today, that's all.
Well, that was my point. We better figure out a way to deal with this, because we're gonna have more and more of them. So that's why having no way to take a look at this, that's it. You actually just made my point. We gotta have some way to look at this.
But those are court-ordered. This is actually a hearing. So those are I think they're gonna be very different, because I'm interested to see how we're gonna vote when those things come forward. Because we are truly concerned about the citizens, and this is, I know now, today, so I better stop.
I'm gonna try one more time. There's a motion and a second. Was that, you were the one, and, okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the rezone. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
No. So it also carries 3-2.
Can I confirm the first and second on that, Mayor? I think I missed it.
First, second?
Thank you.
And the final,
Yes, and no, and Matt, no.
and the final action regarding amending the code at some point or taking a look at it, bringing it back, that's not included in the motion.
No, I mean, that wasn't on our agenda, so I don't know how to ask for direction for staff anymore. If we can ask you to, I don't know how to do this. Is there consensus that we could bring back a discussion about that topic? Municipal code, ordinances, how do we account for these 4 jumps in density? How do we account for that as we go forward? Can we do that, Scott?
I think, well, I've been taking notes, maybe Dave and others have been taking notes. I think it would be appropriate during the general plan update process to consider something like that. I mean, certainly we can talk at some point about that, whether it's a 2 density jump or a 3 or a 4, you know, what's going to be the trigger for perhaps an additional finding would have to be made, or bringing a site plan review back to council or the planning commission. I mean, those are discussions I think that are better had at a general plan update. And again, at that time, you're hoping to potentially reset some properties during a general plan update. So there would presumably be less reason to have subsequent GPA amendments immediately after the general plan was updated. So we can look at it, I think, at that time.
I just don't want that to be 5 years from now. Given the pace of our general plan update, it could be 5 years from now.
I think it was guaranteed to be 2 or 3 years, right? Or
2
less, yeah.
2 or 3 years ago, it was guaranteed to be 2 or 3 years, so we're gonna be 5 years. So I wanna be timely about it. So if we think we're not gonna get it in 5, and that's just a fast time, I'm not making fun of staff, but it's just a lot to get it there. So I think if we can get it, if that's in our horizon in the next couple of years, great, but I just don't think we wanna wait, because we're not gonna have fewer of these, we're gonna have more of these. And I think how to manage those, I think, is important. All right, so that concludes our item on this, or our action on this item. So thank you to the neighbors that attended. If you were here and didn't get a, notice, you can give your contact information to staff, and we can make sure we add to future lists. Okay, item number 16. To consider the approval of a resolution declaring the intention to levy and collect assessments for fiscal year 24-25, authorizing the City of Clovis Engineering Division to conduct a property owner Prop 218 proceeding, approving the fiscal year 24-25 preliminary engineers report, and setting a public hearing for June 17, 2024, or at such time thereafter for Area 1 of Benefit Assessment District Number 95-1, Black Horse Estates. Sean Smith and friend.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Yeah, that was a mouthful. We'll try to be brief here. So we're back before you tonight, asking for approval to begin a Prop 218 vote proceeding, and for you to approve the draft engineer's report for Black Horse Assessment District for fiscal year 24-25. That's the upcoming fiscal year. With us tonight, we also have Ed Espinoza online. He is with Francisco and Associates. And then you saw earlier that we have Allison Nahara from Regency. They are our property management. And to my left, I also have Jamar Rashdan. He's going to be taking over the rest of the presentation here. He's a little bit more eloquent than I am.
Well, I don't know about that this evening, but I'll do a quick PSA. My allergy pill has worn off, and my allergies are awakening. So they're much like a toddler. They're either going to be bad or good. I don't know which one. So, having said that,
I've never used an allergy excuse, but I'm going to use it next time. I like that. I like that a lot.
Make sure you bring your tissue to.
Oh, yeah, I got tissue. Right. I'm good.
So, our recommendation is that, council approves to begin Prop 218 vote for Area 1 and approve the draft engineer's report for fiscal year 24-25. Actions, went too far. Actions following council approval is outlined as April 16th. Staff will mail out Prop 218 ballots to all owners within the assessment district. June 17th, tabulate the ballots, declare the results, and approve the final engineer's report. If the approval takes place, then Area 1 capital projects and general maintenance can resume, and if it does not get approved, then Area 1 will be dissolved. The next two slides are general history of the Black Horse Assessment District. I will not go through them for the sake of time. They are included in your packet. However, if there's anything that you notice afterwards that you would like me to go back to, I will gladly do so. The Black Horse Assessment District is broken up into two sections, first of which is Benefit Area 1, known as Renaissance. It consists of 45 lots. The current annual assessment is $647. There was a rate increase in 2021 of $80, and there was a rejected rate increase in 2023 for $219. Benefit Area 2, known as Country View, consists of 81 lots. Its current assessment is $590 annually. There was a rate increase in 2022, and there is no need to increase that assessment as of this evening. The ongoing maintenance elements consist of gate maintenance, telephone service, street sweeping, landscape maintenance, power for gates and streetlights, city administration, district administrator, assessment engineering, insurance, miscellaneous repairs. And an item to note is that the street sweeping and landscaping maintenance for Area 1 was discontinued in 2023 as a result of that failed vote. As best as possible, we try to be transparent with all financial information as it pertains to these districts. At any point, if you were to go to cityofclovis.com, follow the prompts through planning, development, engineering, you will come to Black Horse, which outlines all of the information discussed this evening and all the historical information as it pertains to the district historically. Now, the proposed annual assessment currently before us tonight is for Benefit Area 1. It is proposed that we increase that by $373 from its current rate of $647 to $1,020. It is also proposed for a $55 annual increase over the next 5 years to avoid continually coming back for a Prop 218 vote. That $55 is a max increase. It isn't necessarily going to have to take place at $55. It could be 0, it could be 20, it could be 40, et cetera. That increase, whatever it may be, will be enclosed in the engineer's report and brought to you all for your consideration and approval. And again, there's no change being considered for Benefit Area 2. The Prop 218 proposed schedule.
Before we go, can you go back to the last one?
Yes, sir.
Annual vote to approve budget proposal, so the $55 a year goes to an annual vote?
The actual engineer's report that outlines whether or not it's going to be $55 will go to an annual vote.
So not the rate, only the engineer's report validating up to 55.
Okay, thank you.
So the Prop 218 proposed schedule, April 16th. Again, ballots will be mailed out to all Renaissance Area 1 owners. There is a mandated 45-day waiting period in between when those ballots are mailed out for consideration. June 17th, ballots are opened, tabulated, and the results declared, and the result of the vote is based on a simple majority of the ballots received. And what that means is it's not the amount of homeowners that the ballots are represented, but the ballots that are actually counted in this chamber. Results of the council approval, again, is if it is approved, Capital One projects will be continued as well as general maintenance, and if it is not, then the Area 1 will be dissolved due to lack of funds. Recommendation for City Council, again, to reiterate, is to approve, to begin the Prop 218 vote for Area 1 and approve the draft engineer's report for fiscal year 24-25. And at this time, we'll open it up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Questions?
As part of the informational packet to this, to the vote, the residents, when we say dissolve Area 1, is it clear what that means, that the gates are removed at their cost and those streets now are public roads? Is that basically what occurs if we dissolve it?
That's what we came back in November and talked about. The packet that they're going to get in the mail doesn't outline the specifics. It just says that we will begin the process of dissolving should the vote not pass.
Okay. I just think it's fair that they understand what that means. And we're not, at least, I voted no against this previously because I see this as taking an inordinate amount of staff time for this, how we got, well, doesn't matter. If, at least in my opinion, if they vote to not pass this, there's no tap backs after that. In my mind, we're going to dissolution and we're done. And at least that's my perspective.
And for your knowledge, we will have $5,000 left if this doesn't pass. That's not enough to keep going for the year. We have to dissolve.
And Sean, you just want to mention the public meeting you held with the residents.
Yeah, we did send out a notification to both Area 1 and Area 2. We posed this before them, gave them an opportunity for feedback as well. Okay. We heard some feedback today on some options, but since then they seem to be in support of this. I'm also getting some text from Ed. He would like to clarify a little bit about the vote process, if you don't mind, about what the $55, in the future years, what that process might be, if that's a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Ed.
Good evening, City Council and members of the public. Hopefully, I'm coming in clear. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Good evening. So, yeah, I just wanted to clarify, property owners for the Renaissance Neighborhood Benefit Area 1 are being asked to approve a 5-year rate schedule as part of this Prop 218 process. So the notice and ballot will reflect not just the increase proposed for this upcoming fiscal year, 24-25, but also the proposed subsequent increases for the following 4 years. So assuming the results are favorable through the Prop 218 process, next year an engineer's report would be prepared, a budget would be prepared, and the assessment rate would reflect that budget. But that engineer's report just needs to be approved by City Council. It doesn't need to go out to approval by the property owners, meaning there would not be a Prop 218 required next year or the following year. The 5-year rate schedule would be approved as part of this year's process. I just wanted to clarify.
And staff, with your assistance, would then set it if it's 48 or 55 or 36 or whatever, yeah? Without having to go back out and estimate.
Exactly right. What's being established right now is the maximum assessment. But in any given fiscal year, the city staff could recommend an assessment be applied lower than the maximum. And of course, City Council would have the ability to approve that recommended assessment rate.
Okay, thank you, that makes more sense. Any other questions for Ed? Thank you. One question?
I just have the question with regards to the dissolution or the dissolve. It states here that it's not an automatic. It's just that we start the meaning staff starts the process, there's still a hearing, and then we still have to decide. And at that time, we will also decide how much to assess.
I believe that's correct.
Right.
Yeah, we walked through some of the basic bones of that in November, but we would have to notice a public hearing. Okay. It would be brought before you for discussion. You'd hear public testimony, and then you decide what you want to do.
And do we know sort of how much would be assessed? Is it less than what they're doing now, more than what they're doing now? So that way, you know, if I'm a property owner, why not dissolve it? I mean, my taxes will be less, or it'll be more. Do they know? Do we know?
We haven't worked out those exact dollars. It seems like they were in favor of approving the vote, so we didn't go to that step.
I just have one quick question, and I know we've covered this before, but can you just refresh my memory when we're talking about Country View and the fact that if this increase is approved, they're going to be roughly half the annual assessment. Is there something other than just the fact that they're almost double the number of homes in their area? What would account for the discrepancy in the annual assessment in the two areas?
That's one of the main factors. I don't know if Allison has more that she wants to add.
You have to come up here, Allison, sorry, or here, or wherever, or there.
So being that Cambridge Country View has almost twice as many homes, you've essentially got almost double the income coming in. And of course, when you look at their expenses compared to Area 1 and Area 2, they're very similar. The only difference is with Area 1, they're splitting those costs, you know, it's less. So if you can imagine a pizza, right, they're absorbing more of those costs and those expenses compared to Area 2. But I will comment on what Sean had said, with the residents being in favor of passing this vote this time, is I think that they've seen the ramifications of eliminating the street sweeping and the landscape services, and they love their gates. And I can tell you most of them are going to go in favor because they don't want those gates to go.
And street sweeping will return if this passes?
Correct. Street sweeping and landscape services would return.
I thought you were going to say they are going to vote in favor of it because they saw the inordinate amount of work our staff has done to be as transparent as we can over and over. So we didn't quite get it right, but we kept trying. So Sean and Tamar and team, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, they've spent quite a amount of time. And I know I've told a lot of the homeowners that have attended the meetings that the benefit that they're receiving and being in an area assessment district compared to an HOA, they're saving quite a bit. We manage other gated communities in Clovis, very similar amenities to what they have, and they're paying far more, if not double, per month compared to what Area 1 is paying. So I think that kind of helps too. That's why it's a benefit assessment district. They really are getting a benefit.
It's called a benefit for a reason.
Exactly.
Thank you. The reason we should call our landscape maintenance district a landscape benefit district. Maybe that'll help. All right, thank you so much. Any other questions? Are you finished with your report? So it's questions. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't even use a single tissue.
I snuck one in. They were acting good today.
All right. Open the public portion. Anybody wanting to comment on this issue? I figured it was you with the binder. That might be you.
Good evening, Mayor Ashbeck, council members. Thank you for the time to speak to you this evening. I'm glad to see that Allison is here and Scott. I've had some conversations with Scott the past 3 or 4 days regarding this problem, if you will. And I understand the position that the city is in. I understand the decision that has been made as far as the future of Renaissance goes. And I do fully expect that the residents of the community are going to accept the budget as it was proposed. We are disappointed in the budget because there are some items that seem to maybe have some room for correction. But I also understand that due to the Prop 218 schedule, that there's nothing can be done about that this year. So if we'll see how that plays out over the course of the year, how it affects the budget next year, and maybe make corrections at that point, maybe not. I have studied the budget and I see opportunities for savings in the budget. I see opportunities for better engineering of the budget so that it's a friendlier animal to deal with rather than a smack in the face of $300 and some odd. Incidentally, my name is Frank Stafford. I am a resident of the Renaissance. I'm also president of the Citizens Advisory Board that deals with the City Council and any other issues that might come up. We are not a fiduciary. We are strictly in an advisory capacity. But we know all of our neighbors, and we're getting to know the ones that we don't know very quickly. The issues that I'd like to address as far as the budget, currently the Area 1 has a street sweeping service, or would have a street sweeping service according to the budget, of once every 2 months. It happens to be a very dusty area, very dirty area. We're very close to the Clovis Trail. The leaf fall there in the winter, or in the fall rather, it's incredible. I get leaves that big come into my yard, and I'm not right next to the trail. I'm a couple blocks away. We get a lot of dust off of the freeways. And so there are a lot of factors that go into whether this is a nice community to live in. And we think that we can improve that aspect by having the street swept every month. And I know that's not in the budget, but I would like to get, I don't know if it's Sean or Allison that needs to create this order, but we'd like to get the streets swept starting in the new year on a monthly basis. And I feel that there are enough funds in the budget to cover that. For example, the control box for the gate is supposed to be replaced in our section. It's also to be replaced in the Country View section because of AT&T doesn't want to do business with us anymore. They want to get rid of landlines, and that's what those call boxes use. The idea is to change the call boxes for a system that uses cellular phones to communicate with the resident for permission to enter or anything else that programming-wise might be built into what that box can do. The Country View budget for the call box change is $2,200. They have the exact same call box that we have. Theirs is built into a stone pillar. Ours is built into a metal box. So I don't see where there's any difficulty in changing ours over theirs. Yet the budget for our area is $5,800. So I think that maybe some explanation for that increase would be appropriate from the management company, and maybe clarification, I don't know, just better information, because I don't see a reason for it. And I happened to go to Country View's call box today and verified it is exactly the same as ours.
Do you
The-
think you could wrap up shortly on your remarks? If you get a chance, it's been, your clock tells me it's 5
Okay.
minutes has been up. Thank you so much.
I'm pretty close to being done.
Thank you.
Okay. We are also scheduled in fiscal year 24-25 to have the gates replaced. I'm not sure of the reason for that, other than I understand that maybe parts are getting hard to find because the gates are old. I don't know. I've heard that the gate change is required because they no longer make that gate. Well, we're not wanting to change the gate because the gate works fine. It does need maintenance somewhere along the way. But I'm also sure that there are other companies out there that make chain drive gates. Because I know for a fact that there's a zillion residential gates in Clovis that are chain driven. And people who manufacture chain drive gates for residences, I can guarantee you they also make them for commercial applications, which is what we would be. So I think that needs to be revisited at all. It's in our budget, so we're going to pay it. Will it come hell or high water, we're going to have to pay it. But it would allow for quicker recovery of the necessary reserves for future years, which would then lead to maybe no $55 increases every year for the next 4 years, just like the savings for just replacing the call box amounts to $8,000 a year amounts to $1,600 a year, and over the course of that budget, it's $8,000. That's a lot of money that can be used for something else. And so there's a lot of room for correction to the budget, and of course we won't see that until next year. But I would like the management company to provide some information to us to correct what appear to be deficiencies.
Well, thank you for leading the Citizen Advisory Group, and I'm sure you can connect with Allison and the property manager company and our team as you need to. So thank you for doing that research.
So, like I say, the residents understand the reason for the vote. They understand the requirement for the vote, and I don't think there's going to be a problem there.
Hope you're right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, Allison's 100% right. They do love the gates. Most everybody lives in this development because it has gates, and I think that the fact that it's a benefit assessment district rather than an HOA is something that probably drew them there when they bought.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else to comment on the Black Horse Estates question?
I'll just let you know when he was saying that he was talking to Scott, he was talking to me. So Mr. Stafford was saying that he was talking to Sean, not Scott Cross.
I was thinking it was Scott Riddell, so I was going to blame it on
Could have been
Scott.
Scott Riddell, yes.
No, blame it on him. Pass it on. All right. Doesn't look like there's any more questions, so we'll close the public portion of this and bring it back to the council for discussion or action.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution declaring the intent to levy and collect assessments for fiscal year 24-25, et cetera, for Black Horse Estates, Benefit Area 1.
Second.
I don't think I've ever had a motion with et cetera, but we've had better things. It's like, what says right?
All of that.
All right, there's a motion and a second. I liked it. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Sorry you had to be at the tail end of a long agenda, but thank you for staying to the end. Thank you to Allison and Sean, Scott, and Shamar. Hope you feel better. All right, our last item, which must be the three of you in the back there. I'm very smart. Consider the approval of a resolution for the sale and transfer of interest in K&M Casinos, 500 Club Casino located at 771 West Shaw Avenue, Clovis, from Michael LeBlanc to Richard Barkley and Mark English. John.
Thank you, Mayor. Given the hour, I'll be relatively brief on this. Staff is recommending the City Council approve the sale and transfer of interest in the 500 Club to Michael LeBlanc, from Michael LeBlanc to Richard, goes by Kevin Barkley and Mark English. The City Council previously approved and issued a card room license for the operation of the 500 Club, jointly owned by Michael LeBlanc and Kevin Barkley, who each held a 50% ownership interest in the 500 Club. In 2022, Michael LeBlanc, Kevin Barkley, and Mark English entered into an agreement whereby Michael agreed to sell his 50% interest to Kevin and Mark, each of which would receive 25%, resulting in Kevin owning 75% and Mark owning 25%. The Clovis Municipal Code does permit the sale and or transfer of the interest in the licensing gaming club within the City of Clovis with council approval. The California Gambling Control Commission has approved the purchase of the agreement. The Clovis Police Department did a background of the two parties, and staff is recommending the City Council approve the sale and transfer. That concludes staff's report, and we have 3 representatives here from the 500 Club, if you have any questions, but that concludes my staff report.
Thanks, John. Can you tell me what the paragraph means where it says the police chief, et cetera, recommend the City Council waive any procedural irregularities in the order by which K&M Casinos obtained approval? What does that mean?
In a perfect world, they would have sought council approval prior to the actual exchange agreement that they entered into.
So they did this transaction, and we're just here to say it was okay to do? Sort of?
Sort of. And the code requires that they get city council approval before they sell their interest or do an exchange. They did not in this case. We've met with them, we've gone back and looked at everything. We recreated a background investigation, and now staff has taken a look at it, and even though they didn't get city council approval prior to it being approved between the two parties, and the gaming commission staff is still recommending approval of the transfer.
Okay, thanks. Other questions for staff? Public comment? Would any of you like to comment? Assuming that's who you are, otherwise you work for the city and I don't know what your job is, but.
Hi, Jared Blondin on behalf of KMN Casinos. Thank you for your time this evening, and we agree with the staff's assessment and respectfully request your support tonight. Thank you.
Can I ask you about the irregularities? That's such an odd thing. How did this occur?
Oh, so it's a very, complex system where you have to seek state approval. So basically, you have to get the Gambling Control Commission to approve the transaction. We have done that. Mr. English has a temporary license, and so now we're here at the city portion to get this portion approved, and then we can close it with the state and move forward. I think a bit of the irregularity here deals with the K&M has already been approved, and so Mr. Barclay's, buying a portion of a corporation that's already been approved and licensed by the city, and probably wasn't aware of the dual approval before moving forward here locally.
All right, seems unusual to have the word irregularities in an item about casinos. That makes me very nervous, but staff has reviewed. Scott, you're okay?
Yeah, the word irregularity, applies to the process.
I understand, but got my attention.
Right, as what was discussed, the city's ordinance technically requires that they seek approval from the city council at the same time they're seeking approval from the Gaming Control Board. They already sought and obtained approval from the Gaming Control Board, which has probably a more stringent process than the city, but they hadn't sought city council approval. So we reminded them of that. So we just want to make sure, under the city's ordinance, if you approve it tonight, there's not any issue with the fact that it may have been approved after the fact or after the state's approval. So
that's all I wanted to confirm.
Just to clarify the record.
All right, thanks. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Is there any other public comment? You two don't want to say anything? What would you say at 9:13? All right, we'll close the public portion.
Yeah, before I make a motion, I just wanted to publicly thank the 500 Club for remaining open and keeping all your employees employed during COVID, investing in that big tent and giving people an outlet in our city. And furthermore, you know, we're starting to see you out in the community giving back to our community, whether it's with the hospital, whether it's with our police. And so we appreciate that partnership and your willingness to give back to the community. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve the sale and transfer of interest in K&N Casinos from Michael LeBlanc to Richard Barkley and Mark English.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, the white word, I'm not sure. Well done. You're done. Thank you so much. Sorry to you also for the 9:15 agenda time. City manager comments.
I have none.
Council comments. Diane. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You went to beach. I stared at it the whole night.
I hope that helps.
Longingly.
No, I had the opportunity this morning to tour a facility that benefits our community. It's not located here in Clovis, but it offers a regional service, and that's the Lighthouse Recovery and Rehabilitation Center. And they do phenomenal work helping women in this area who are struggling with issues, but they give them kind of a full service opportunity to come in and deal with their issues and go through a program with security and those important things. And at the end of that, they really have the life skills and ability to kind of reintegrate successfully. They have an incredible success rate of enabling these women to get back into the community successfully. And so I just wanted to thank Vicki Luna and her people with the Lighthouse Recovery Center for the invitation and the tour today. It was really great. And I have word that they are going to have one of the booths out at the Clovis Rodeo, because one of the things they do with their clients, the women who go through there, is they have job opportunities. And so some of the things they do are boutiques and clothing and things like that. And so I'm excited to check out one of their booths at the Clovis Rodeo. And of course, I am very much looking forward to all of the fun that is coming up with the 110th Rodeo. And so that is all I have.
Thank you. Matt? Drew? Paul?
Got a chance to tour the blood center on Herndon, so got to learn what they do. And second, went on behalf of the mayor to speak to the homeschool kids from Woodward Baptist Church. So a bunch of good kids there wanting to learn about local government. So that's all I have.
And the only thing, two things, I guess. I don't know how to do this, but I think can we revisit the notice requirement discussion again? I think it's probably time to rethink that again. I don't know how to do that in the current world we live in, but can we just ask you? Can we ask him to just take a peek at the noticing requirement, just to make sure we've got it right? Or I don't know. Are we using social media? Could we use it more? Can't you geofence some neighborhood and say, hey, guess what? Or I don't know. But I do feel like we can. It's always an issue, so I just
we can. And just one thing to remember is going to be that. There is a legal requirement. Right. We do set it. There's 300 feet. We do 800 feet. But if we end up doing the entire city on every project, that could be considered as a disadvantage to a project going beyond the legal requirement. So we'll go back and take a look at it and bring something back.
Yeah, I'm certainly not suggesting the whole city on every project, but you get 800 feet is 3 houses, 4 maybe. In today's world, it's probably 10, but I mean, it could be. So I think it's just worth just making sure we're clear on that. And then I think I've done this before, but I had a call from a neighbor about Gettysburg Park, and the condition of Gettysburg Park. I was with my son a few weeks ago, and he had to use the restroom, and I said, "So can you tell me what it looks like?" And he goes, "I'll take you a picture," and it really does look tough. So I don't know how to generate kind of funds for basic maintenance of things like that, but the sign is quite faded. It has a typo on it, probably had it for years. The word vandalism is spelled wrong. The paint is all peeling, and the bathroom is really tough. So I don't know how to as we get into the budget process, I do think, like, how do you do the basics well? And that, to me, is a basic. So maybe just taking a peek or come back and tell us how we can, do we outsource that? And I don't know exactly, but it looks pretty rough. The other example I think I showed you was the graffiti painted over at the corner of Armstrong and Shaw, just the first street south of Armstrong and Shaw on the east side into that neighborhood. I can't remember the street now. But the block wall fence is, let's call it this color, and the paint is gray. So it looks like it's painted over graffiti. And I don't know quite, that's probably not quite our thing. So if we can maybe just take a peek at some of those items would be helpful. But the Gettysburg Park photos are alarmingly, well, I don't want to go to the bathroom in public. Too much information. All right, and I will be out of town on May 6th. So don't talk about me while I'm gone. And with that, we will...
I was gonna say, that's gonna be a long night.
Oh, good. Good luck. Oh, well, that's too bad.
That's the one you continue to May 6th.
Oh, well, isn't that funny?
Hilarious.
Yeah, I'm smarter than I thought. Well, I'm going to Maine, so I'm not going to be here. Sorry. All right, we will adjourn into closed session. There is one item. There does not appear to be any action that you're anticipating.
No action.
And with that, we'll adjourn to May 6th, but some of us won't adjourn to that one at all. Have a good trip to Spain. All right, that's it.